Skyrim, so it's an interesting starting
So,
point.
hey everybody, we are live now on my channel, Prince of Queens, and we're doing one of
Mm.
these gay hangout things where we talk about gay politics, which I sort of did that with Kizum Fowler on Monday, but it was more impromptu, I guess. I'm joined by the Liberal Hammer, who is the bearded one. Well, I guess the other one maybe has a beard, but it's not as big. Um,
That's for
and
sure.
very Valyn um, today. So yeah, and we're gonna be talking about politics, and the Liberal Hammer has some stuff prepared. I think that what we're specifically talking about is kind of like um the gay community's reservations about Trump and
Mhm.
why people dislike him, continue to dislike him, or initially disliked him, or what have you. And that's what we're going to get into. I'm sort of sweating and I'm a little bit tired because I went to the store to go grab a beer. But what I do is instead of going to the store, I walk to this park that's by my house, and there's this long flight of stairs, like very, very long. I'm going to take a video of it someday and show everybody, upload it. It's called I call it the Skyrim Park. And
Nice.
you can go down the steps and then I run back up them. Or I did today. Usually I just walk, but today I actually ran back up them. And then I went all the way to the store. And I always underestimate how long it takes me to do this little walking route because it's really not that far, but it's like opposite ends away from my house. So yeah, it took me 15 minutes and that's why we're late. So how are you guys doing?
Doing all right. Oh shit, my screen is. I'm doing all right. Had an interesting week over the past week, and Valyn can definitely speak to this. I've had some fun on my Facebook. I caused a war over the topic of abortion on my Facebook wall. I got over 500 comments. I got told to basically check my white privilege when I posted an article regarding the football player there, Sanchez, I believe, who hung himself. And it's now police were following the theory that he may have killed the individual that he killed because to keep his secret that he's bisexual. And I made I put a comment with this post that especially here in America, modern day and age, there's no reason to kill even for such a secret. If I'm not going to lie, if I was in some country where homosexuality was punishable by death and someone walked in on me screwing a man, I'd probably run after them and snap their fucking neck. But in modern day America, I mean, come on. So that's basically the comment made. And I just said in general, murder is wrong. There's no excuse in this circumstance for murder whatsoever. Well, I got a comment pretty much where I'm sick of white gay men not understanding, colored gay men of color. And oh my fucking God, did it turn into this huge thing. Oh, Valyn got called one of my minions. So,
I need to like pay better attention to your Facebook wall.
It gets
yes.
fun.
So that happened. Then just recently I had posted a photo. I should actually send it to you because I had posted a photo as a comment where it's someone holding a sign saying my genitals do not define me. And there's comments beneath it by someone else. I forgot exactly what they were saying, but they were saying some funny shit. So I posted this as a response to a video of this guy who destroyed someone's property. It was actually a Trump sign, but he was still destroying someone else's property. Despite my feelings of Trump, it's someone's property. And the people were like, "Yo, dude," and he goes, and I mean a baritone voice. He goes, "I'm not a man." So I was like, I posted this picture as a comment on this video. Well, someone in my friends list found this comment. For some reason, it showed up on their feed, and they screenshotted it and posted it to my wall saying, "I wouldn't expect this from you." Because as I've made clear on my own channel and even here, I've been an activist in the community for so long. So this created a huge blow up on my fucking channel. I mean, on my Facebook about about cis, non-binary, trans rights, and
Oh God.
XXXY and X0, XO, and X whatever the fuck.
I
Yeah.
feel like you are. I'm witnessing with you the opening phases of complete and utter shitlorddom. Like you're
Yep.
gonna be a total shitlord within, 8 months probably, because this is gonna happen to you. Like now that you're like, you happened to take one little teeny red pill, and now you're starting to be like, wait, guys, and they're like, wait, what, motherfucker, shut the fuck up. Oh, and you're gonna be like, you're just gonna get tired of it eventually, and you're gonna be a little bit more like myself, or maybe you're going to be for full blown more like Valyn, because he seems a little.
I like being described as full blown. I'm okay with that. Well, I
So
had
yeah,
a
that
little
was my
shitstorm on my page today too. All I posted was a tiny little blurb that I was kind of getting annoyed by the feminization of men, and I realize I'm not the pinnacle of masculinity or anything, but there's a concerted effort to feminize men, and I think that has a lot to do with why the gays don't like Trump. And oh my, they didn't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, well, like, okay, so the whole feminized men thing, that's like a fucking basically a true it's like, it's not exactly a conspiracy theory, it's full on true. If you
Yeah.
look through like feminist theory and like fucking psychologists that have donated their supposed research to, like, I don't know what I don't know what problems they claim to be trying to solve, but like, why everything that every they think that basically solving all the world's problems is get rid of men, and if you can't actually like have some sort of
Mhm.
male genocide, then you can at least rob men of being male as much as possible. And that's sort of what they've, once they realized the whole male genocide thing would probably not work out, then they had to opt for the latter option. It pisses me off too, because it's just like, it can be said so simply. Obviously, men don't have the same type of, okay, there are MGTOWs, I'll admit they're out there, and some of them
Yeah.
are, but they're usually too stupid to actually really organize in any sort of effective way. Feminists
Yeah.
can organize a little bit better, even radical feminists. And it's like, if men had any sort of the same malice that feminists have towards men, and they talked about like the same types of, like female genocide, if it ever came down to it, it would be like a 6-hour war, and all women would be annihilated. If they came up with some like, reproducing machines, and men decided like, oh, we're done with women, it would be over within a day. you know Fucking ungrateful fucking feminists. They don't know what all of us, well, I don't really do anything for them, but a lot of guys do.
Sure, and these people are so unaware of themselves. Like this person was calling themselves anti SJW, and the way that they were attacking me over and over again about this trans thing, and about how bullying and even misgendering somebody is just as bad as attacking them, and this and that.
Oh, God.
It's just, you're not aware of yourself at all. How could you be anti SJW and you're behaving exactly like one? You have purple hair, lipstick on, and you're telling me that I'm toxically masculine. So.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, it's really annoying that like people like SJWs have now learned the term SJW and they deny being one. Like a friend of mine
Yeah.
who's like such a fucking SJW is like that. I mean, it's like, I think that it's one of those things where, you can't see the forest from the trees. You always know that there's like that
Mhm.
for every SJW there's always that one lesbian that they really hate still, so they think that they're not
Yeah.
one. But I was going to say, did you guys ever see that clip? It was from last year during the campaign. There was some sort of Trump rally on like a college campus, something like that. And there were some guys, I think they had MAGA hats on. And there was some dude, and full on dude, sounds like a dude, looks like a dude, but he had a bandana over his face. And some guy was saying something to him, and he spit on him. The guy with the bandana pulls down his bandana, spits on the dude, and then the guy's like, hey, and he was like, and then he's like, "Come on, hit me. Do you want to hit a woman?" And he was like, and someone was like, "Hey, this guy right here spit on me," like, because a lot of people were looking and like, taking video of it. And the guy spits him, and then he's like, "Do you want to hit a woman?" And then he's like, And then some girl comes up and is like, "Wow, did you just misgender her?" Like, doesn't care about the whole spitting thing. She cares about the misgender. But that's such the attitude of SJWs, is like they will let people, do these really, really awful things, and then like the smallest thing that, some, like, this happens all the time on my fucking friends' timelines. When my friends post some fucking shit and I get in an argument with one of their stupid ass friends, like their friends will say really, really vicious, awful things to me. They'll be like, "Oh, well, the reason you hate feminists is because you hate women. It's obviously because you're an aging gay man and you can't get laid anymore, so you take it out on women. That's probably it, huh? That's probably it." And it's just like, what? Like, like you're psycho. Like, that has nothing to do with what we were talking about. And then they're like, "Whoa, did you just call her psycho? That's not cool, dude."
Yeah, this queen was going off on me for saying that men are too feminized right now as a whole, by telling me that was wrong to say, and that I'm a nasally queen who has no shoe to stand on. So that doesn't really make sense. They use the same exact tactics. I really think that some of them also are like half red pilled, but they've tied their identity to this trans movement or whatever it is, so they can't seem to let go of that one part. And I think that we all kind of went through that at some point in our teenage years, but with the SJW culture, they never come out of that. It's like they stay stunted in this teenage anarchy rebellious shit.
Yeah.
Well, it's also hard because one of the things that I can honestly speak as someone who's most recently SJW is that it's really about separating. Oh shit! There's a gentleman in me. Several beers. Sorry. It's really about separating. Learning to look at things without the emotions. That's one of the most difficult things to learn. It was one of the most difficult things for me. To look at things objectively without necessarily like my feelings. Now, it doesn't mean I became cold and have no feelings. It just means that I learned to look at things and not react initially with feelings. And that's very difficult to do because the one thing with the SJW mindset is you're taught to personalize personal attack. Everything you should take personally overall.
Unless you're privileged, and then it's not personal. Even if it is completely personal.
Even the attacks on on other groups, if you're a good ally, then you take those attacks, personally as well. If you're a good ally, you take everything personal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The white girl that says it actually, like hurt her as an individual to see somebody write the N-word on the internet.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess that was the biggest thing for me, and coming out of that, that's been one of the most difficult things, because I actually just posted a picture today that got a lot of reaction, and it's about Antifa. Stands for anti-First Amendment. So I posted an image. Valyn saw that. I saw they liked that, and oh my god, it didn't blow up like 500 comments, but I definitely got a reaction to it out of some of my friends. And of course Hitler was brought up, which I honestly I feel like I'd be fucking wealthy. I feel like I'd be a fucking millionaire if I had $1 for every time Hitler was brought up on
Just
an
today.
SJW stream. Yeah, just today. I mean, I really feel like I would, wow, I'd be rolling in it. But But yeah, do we want to get started on the whole Trump conversation? Get going with the fun there?
Sure. Did you guys watch my video that I posted the other day?
I did. I liked a lot of the points you made.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. So I had a stream with Kizum Fowler, and he brought up that there is an actual few things. One thing in particular is basically this weird Freedom of Speech Protection Act is what it's called, but what it really is it makes it legal for people to discriminate against gay people, and it would legally apply to employment, so people could actually anyway, no, it's not that it makes it legal, it makes it that the federal government is not allowed to do anything about it.
Well, it's called the First Amendment Defense Act. In the Senate, that was introduced in the 114th Congress, first session, under Bill S. 1598. and in the House, it was under HR 2802, if anyone's interested in looking that up. That was actually going to be one of my discussion points
Okay.
when we get to that. So I
Well,
was
yeah,
definitely
let's get
planning
to
on
it. Yeah.
touching on the First Amendment. Yeah, the First Amendment Defense Act is actually what it was called. But I wanted to touch on one topic before that,
Oh,
if you
okay.
don't mind.
Well,
If you
no,
don't
I
mind.
was just gonna say real quick that like I made my video and like okay, there are very various specific reasons and everything, but I would say those all are take a back seat to like 75% of the reason why gay men as a whole largely dislike Trump is simply just the whole he's a mean man though he's a man and he's like a straight guy and he's doesn't say nice things and
he's white.
yeah, but no, not even though, because like most gay guys like white guys, but even if they're black, come on, let's be realistic. But it's just he's a mean straight guy. That's all it really is. Like guy, they can't handle that. Like gay guys, like they and I think that if we were in a different political social climate, like maybe in 4 or 5 years, people will be a little bit more used to that. But like gay guys have become such fucking passive aggressive cuck like pieces of shit because like I'm sorry,
Bravo.
I lived in New York
Hmm.
City and went to playwriting school from 2000 through 2005. There were a lot of bitchy ass fucking gay guys that I knew, like it was cool to be like that then, and now everybody's just like, like very eye rolly, like say bitchy things on Facebook and then pretend it wasn't an insult, like bullshit. And so if somebody's like direct, very like Donald Trump happens to be from New York. It's very refreshing to me. He has that like alpha male New York City personality, and for me, I'm like I get nostalgic over it. I have to say, like I'm like thank God, because like I'm so fucking sick of this fucking gay cuck bullshit, and so we need a little bit more just the attitude of Donald Trump. I do appreciate, and I was saying that behind closed doors, not necessarily publicly before the election, but I always did agree with that notion that he'd get rid of the political correctness, and I was happy about that.
Definitely. Look what happened after having 8 years of Obama. Obama was the most beta president I think we've ever had. Hillary is more of a man than Obama. And Trump is all man.
Triggering the feminists.
He's an alpha male as well. And like you said, he's from New York. He's direct. He's aggressive. He's not passive aggressive. And that's what you want out of a leader. You don't want some pussy that's going around apologizing to everyone, drawing red lines that everyone steps on,
No, I definitely understand that. But if we want to get started, I have my points right here on my list. I figured we could get started, and I see we're getting a lot of comments too. Especially to Drunken Uncle, I quickly want to say fuck you, and I say that with love. So I figured I would start with actually Trump's campaign, because I know a lot of people are focusing on the more recent. But however, especially as an activist, during the initial parts of Trump's campaign, there were a lot of things that occurred that made a lot of the people, myself and a lot of other activists, a bit nervous. So I thought I'd start there, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd run my mind. I figured I'd run my mouth for a moment, bring up a topic, and then we just go around in a circle and discuss it. Now I know most people. Mike Pence is the first thing. Even Trump supporters, Mike Pence is like the one thing that comes into their mind, and that's usually the first thing where they're like, okay, I can kind of see why the community was a little. But to be honest, that even before, to me, Mike Pence wasn't the biggest thing. So I want to start with something else with that. During Trump's campaign, I don't know if people remember this much. He actually did a interview with Chris Wallace. I'm Chris Wallace on Fox News. I don't know if you remember that. It was, I believe, the records from it, the script from it was published on January 31st, 2016. And in this interview, I just want to read a few passages here. I'll send you the link, Prince, so you can post that below in the description if people want to read the full text.
Okay.
So Wallace, this is what he said. He goes, but Mr. Trump, let's take one issue. You say now that the Supreme Court has ruled that same-sex marriage is the law of the land and that any politician who talks about wanting to amend the Constitution is just playing politics. Are you saying it's time to move on? Trump, now, mind you, this is where I actually have something in common with Trump. I'm not going to lie, I'm not the most eloquent person, so I trip over his quoting him a little bit from time to time. So Trump's response was, just the first portion of it was, no, I'm saying this. It has been ruled up. That's literally what this says. It has been there. If I'm if I'm elected, I would be very strong on putting certain judges on the bench that I think maybe could change things. So Wallace responded, and Trump goes on a little bit about states' rights, but Wallace responded, but just to button this up very quickly, sir, are you saying that if you become president, you might try to appoint justices to overrule the decision on same-sex marriage? And Trump's response to this was, I would strongly consider that, yes. Now, during this interview, when I heard that, when a number of my friends heard that, especially those of us who just came off from being strong advocates, for same-sex marriage, legalizing it nationally, that was something that took us back. That was something that legitimately frightened us, because especially for me as a married gay man, I that gave me pause, and it did create fear. I'm married to my husband now. I look forward to building a family with him. The protections that we have through marriage, I like having those. And that was one of the first things.
Do you want to?
So I was gonna wrap up real quickly about that.
Sorry, I was just gonna make a joke.
Yeah, jokes are definitely appreciated, but no. So, anyways, when Trump said that, so that's my first thing right there. Is that interview did create a lot of tension and even fear for those of us who had taken part in the fight for marriage equality, and I think that helped the SJW mindset seep in all the more, at least where I was located. I know there's certain areas where it had already infiltrated quite well. I'm aware of that, but where I'm currently located, it hadn't, really sunk in yet. So at least in my group of activists, that created that feeling of fear, that interview right there. So I'll throw that to you guys if you want to comment on that.
Sure. Now, I'm just curious. Did that interview happen before or after he got elected? Because I didn't see that specific interview. I heard about it secondhand.
That one happened. Well, the text to it was printed. It was published on January 31st, 2016. So,
okay, gotcha.
So it would have taken. Yeah, I think that may have even been the day of the interview. But like I said, I'll send a link to Prince of Queens for the text, and then he can put that in the description later.
Sure. And I think Trump has been in a unique position altogether. He hit a lot of records here being elected, a lot of things that have never happened before in our history. And that includes him having to kind of juggle this weird far right versus mainstream left and having to kind of kowtow to certain people. And, I think that scared the crap out of a lot of people legitimately. But there are other routes to make gay marriage happen than the route we took. My whole argument towards gay marriage in the first place was that Christian institutions should not be forced to acknowledge gay marriage, that we should have stripped the rights from the word marriage, given everyone who was already married a grandfathered in clause, and given everybody civil partnership, something along those lines. So I get the argument that it's a Christian institution. However, I also get the argument that if the government is going to give someone benefits, you have to give it to everyone. So, I wouldn't put it past Trump to find a workaround that would make both sides happy. And that's about the only defense for that I can come up with. It really didn't bother me that much. I'm not personally married. I didn't fight super hard for that, but I do want equality for everyone. I just don't think the means aren't helping the end in the end, because we're like forcing people to bake cakes for us isn't the right way to get businesses to recognize gay people. You get what I'm saying? Like the ends I get, but the means aren't working. So I could see him trying to find a workaround, kind of appease everybody there. It's not that big a deal.
Oh no, I mean, I definitely get that. Like I said, for me, especially as a married man, it was definitely something that that I took note of. Mind you, I think of it differently now, and even my cousin, who is a Trump supporter, who I wound up for a while cutting out of my life, one of her responses to it was, "Well, also a lot of politicians say things that they won't follow through with, and all this stuff." So that was one of her responses to that, because I don't know. Like I said, for me, marriage, I don't view marriage as a religious thing. I honestly don't. I know a lot of people do. I have read several books on the history of marriage, and actually more so than anything to connect it to religion. Marriage historically, like the poor in many nations were not even allowed to marry. Being married was something that was for the wealthy. It united kingdoms. It united powerful families. So to say that historically marriage has been respected as a religious a religious bond overall would be kind of ridiculous because it hasn't. Yes, the church in many of these countries, especially in Europe, the church had influence there because they realized with these marriages were power, but these marriages weren't done on love overall in many cases or how we romanticize marriage today. So when people talk about marriage being a set way for a period of time, that's where I kind of have to argue because I'm like, even the Bible, marriage doesn't stay the same throughout the Bible, and in other religious texts from not just Christianity. So that's one of my arguments there when it comes to marriage because to be honest, I did want the word marriage. My parents had a marriage. They were together for over 40 years. I am second to the youngest out of 18 children. I was at many of my siblings' weddings. They had a marriage. I wanted that. So like I said though, I look at that differently. What he said then, I don't look at it with fear like I did back then. I do think about it differently from a different perspective, of course. And also, mind you, this was the beginning of 2006 as well, so he was really trying to get that base. I honestly, I've come to view Trump personally, as the least conservative Republican I've ever seen run on the Republican ticket, at least in my lifetime. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. At least when it comes to
Yeah,
social issues. At least
to
when it
an
comes to
extent.
social issues.
I mean, he's
When it,
he's a mixed bag, I think.
Yeah.
yeah. So, but anyways, Prince, what's your feeling on that? Sorry, I
uh,
know.
Gay marriage. It's like my least favorite talking thing. I was fucking. I am a little bit older than you guys, and I was in New York City. The big issue in when George W. Bush got reelected, and like that man should not have gotten reelected. Like
I
he
agree.
sucked. Granted, I
Yeah.
mean his opposition, fucking John Kerry, was not much better.
Sure.
But like that was the big topic in the gay community. That election was gay marriage even then, like because George W. Bush was talking about like making a constitutional amendment that would make gay marriage permanently illegal, which is the dumbest fucking like that's I mean, okay, I looking it's one of those things where it's like I guess if your actual president is talking about such a thing, it is kind of scary, but like looking back on it, that's so comical. Like, we're gonna make a constitutional amendment to make sure that you guys never get to do this. Like, who does that? That's so stupid.
I think that was all the evangelical block as well that he was catering to throughout
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, absolutely. But it was annoying to me just because I just kind of felt I actually mostly felt similar to you, Valyn, about the issue. Like it's just not really a thing that I care about that much, and I think that there's better ways to deal with it. I don't like um state sanctioned Christianity mingling,
Yes.
whatever the fuck. I like the libertarian angle on the whole gay marriage thing and marriage in general. Like
Yeah.
that is a better way to do it ultimately if you really think about it. So yeah, that's sort of my feeling. And by the time it finally passed, the biggest thing that I celebrated was the fact that we would never talk about it again.
Well, we're talking about it now. We're talking about it now.
I know. By the way, Jilly D just donated $10. Thank you so much. She says for shits and giggles and equality, of course. Plus, too lazy for Patreon. Great stream so far. Thank you very much. I always appreciate your super chat donations because it gives me a special little neurosynapse response in my brain or whatever.
I did want to talk. Oh, sorry. Were you about to speak, Valyn?
Yeah, I actually found a quote later in 2016 because I remember hearing Trump say something specifically about being okay with the Supreme Court decision on gay marriage. And his quote was in November of 2016 that he indicated that he is fine with the High Court's opinion that legalizing same-sex marriage is done, basically, and called it settled, and then redirected to Roe v. Wade. So I really do think that that was a talking point to kind of let his voters know that, you know, he's still okay with the far right. However, he softened his stance like months later, and I got that right off the bat. I could see through that from jump. I never got the feeling that he was gay hating or anything like that.
But like I said, mind you, for a lot of us, especially those of us who are activists, that it was easy to trigger the fear.
Sure.
And unfortunately, as much as, you know, it's especially for those of us who had just come off from that fight. However, I also did one thing I want to say about the earlier when it came to marriage equality. There actually was initially a movement, even among liberals, for civil unions.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you recall that. But the problem is that the civil unions the left, at least what I was part of, we were trying to push so that civil unions were equal to marriage in all aspects legally. Of course. Obviously, the only difference with marriage would be, okay, religious, all that shit. But the thing is, religious conservatives fought us even on that. And I remember this. They wouldn't even let us have that. It actually could have become civil unions and marriage. It could have become that in the States, but religious conservatives didn't even want us to have that. And in several states, they fought even civil unions when they were put on the ballots. I remember this.
I remember when it was the George Bush administration, and we had the whole, you know, he got reelected and everybody was blames, you know, looking for someone to blame, and I totally blamed the gay community. I was like, you guys would not shut up about that shit. Like, couldn't you have just like been happy with civil unions or pushed that? But you guys were fucking throwing these stupid marches and shit, and they were like they sort of did what the religious right did in your story, which was that they were like, no, it has to be marriage. It had, like, they rejected civil unions as well, and they were like, no compromises for civil rights. It needs to be called marriage. And it was like, why? Just fuck, like, you know, it was just annoying.
I think too that you know, senators, congressmen, mayors, all these people that are voting for constituents and on their behalf, they don't really benefit from coming up with these compromises where both sides give 50-50 or come up with a new paradigm altogether. They work better by dividing people and keeping them at odds so that one always loses, so that the voting block is left separate. And I think that
absolutely,
just like with the transgender bathroom thing, I think a great issue, a great answer to that issue would have been to make minor bathrooms and 18 and up bathrooms. Both sides seem to be happy from that, but I've heard nobody even promote anything like that. So it doesn't seem like they want to come to a common ground.
Yeah, and that's one of the issues, is that unfortunately, like I did just mention though earlier on in the fight for marriage equality, well, at the point when the left was actually willing to consider civil unions if they had the same protections, there was more room for compromise. And then, Prince, you're right, it became, well, we want the whole thing. But Valyn, I do want to say that I do acknowledge, and even in the text I just read, Trump did initially start by pretty much saying that it was settled law, but then he went into the appointing a Supreme Court, trying to create a Supreme Court that would overturn it, and that's kind of what created that backlash there. Like I said, I look at that from a different perspective now, but at the time, that was my knee-jerk reaction to it. this horse to death, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. If we're ready to do that.
I just want to say real
All right.
quick what Valyn was saying about keeping people divided for voting block purposes is very, very true, and it's annoying that Trump is cozying up so much to the religious right, because I mean the optimistic part of me thinks that the religious right is not going to happen again, but then I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe as a response to the fears of Islamic extremism, it will happen again. And I've been wrong. I didn't think Britney Spears was going to be popular when she first came out. So
I see this this
Speaking of
neo-Christian
train
far-right youth arising, and they're hyper obsessed with the Crusades and everything. I think it's a passing trend. I think it is indicative of maybe a rise of Christianity in the right again. But I honestly don't have much of a problem with that. I think that we've got enough checks and balances within the government now to keep them in check in that way. And I think they realize that as well, because they're not going so hard on issues that would take away our right to marry and things like that. Now it's, the left has given them so much to complain about that is asinine that it's just throwing darts at a board at this point.
but remember though, like they always want the stupid religious masses. Those are who they fight the wars with.
Yeah.
Well, even I will admit, I think where where the LGBT community is concerned and everything, even if there is a rise of religious conservatism or anything like that, I have noticed that even those that I've noticed who are younger, who are connecting to Christianity, and even some of the Christians that I do know. I actually work with a woman who identifies, she's Christian. And despite my criticisms of organized religion in general, not just Christianity, but organized religion across the board, I have to acknowledge that I'm seeing definitely a less aggressive side, at least in the Christians that I'm seeing today. Same-sex marriage isn't a focus for a lot of them. Abortion is still a hot button issue, of course, but in general, and I've noticed a rise, to be honest, in religious practices, even Christianity among LGBT friends, the LGBT community itself. So I think, and a rise in churches that are open to the community as well. So I do think that if there is a religious awakening or a reawakening, it's going to come in a very different form. I do believe that. So I agree with Valyn there, at least to that extent.
Yeah.
But if we're ready to move on, I figured we'd move on to the next
Sure.
fun portion here. So I know we kind of discussed this a little bit earlier. And that was the First Amendment Defense Act, which for people who are not aware of that, and I will send a link to you, Prince, to the full text of First Amendment Defense Act, so you can post that in the description.
I've looked at it actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, send me the stuff, whatever you want me to post in the description. I'll do that later.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, so when Trump announced that if this was to come across his desk, that he would sign it into law, mind you, every other Republican candidate made that same promise.
And also Trump says lots of stuff that.
That was yes, but like I said, you got to keep in mind the SJW mindset and the coming off the whole advocacy, and the whole fighting and all that shit. So that created, obviously, it created a lot of commotion among the LGBT community. Now, the problem with the First Amendment Defense Act is it goes really far beyond protecting a baker or a pizza place, which I don't know what fucking, to be stereotypical, what fucking fags are ordering pizza for their fucking weddings?
Yeah,
Sorry,
right.
anyways, I know it's the white trash.
It was reporters. These people were found fishing for a business that wouldn't bake them a cake or make them a pizza, and they literally had to go through tons of them to get to that point. That was already, they're fishing for it.
Yeah,
and
most
that's
most
also,
restaurants were probably like, "Oh my God, the gays want our catering! I am so excited. We've made
Fancy
it."
pizza, yeah.
exactly. I know, right? And I also remember this. I also remember. Oh fuck, who did the joke? Someone did the fucking joke where there was a Price Chopper bakery where they made cakes. Who one of the workers there was saying that he would not bake a cake for a same-sex wedding, and I'm trying to remember which comedian. I want to say it was Bill Maher or maybe it was Jon Stewart, but he was like, really? What gays do you think are honestly going to Price Chopper for their wedding cake? But
Yeah.
so anyway, so to get back to the First Amendment, Defense Act. Now, this it was, it was much more far-reaching than just protecting bakers or pizza places. This is something that could affect obviously even housing, discrimination in housing, hiring, health insurance, medical coverage across the board, where someone could honestly just say, well, my religious views say that your marriage, your homosexuality is wrong, therefore we're not going to cover this, we're not going to, and here's my ultimate thing on that. Now, some people will argue with me, well, there shouldn't be, some people would argue, well, there shouldn't be special rights, okay? Now, as an activist, one thing I always tried to express is we weren't, at least I wasn't personally, I wasn't fighting for special rights. I was fighting for equal protection under the law, whether that's lack of protection or having protections. And let me explain what I mean by that. Right now, under federal law here in America, we have race, religion, sex, disability, age. These are all covered under, they're protected classes. So personally, as an American, as a taxpayer, I want that same protection. Now, some people will say, okay, well, they'll say, well, I don't believe in any protections. I'm like, okay, then that's a valid point to have. That's a valid view. If you don't believe in any protections, where's your movement to remove all protections? Because then I'd be fine with that, including
Sure.
religious protections. Because and I'm not saying this to piss off anyone who's religious who's watching this. But the one thing I do want to point out is that we may have a debate whether or not homosexuality is a choice or whether we're born this way. I personally believe that we are. But the one thing I can say is that religion, sure as fuck, is a lifestyle choice. And I'm going to be damned if someone else's lifestyle choice is going to impact legislation, is going to be used to create legislation that will negatively impact my life. So that this is one of where I kind of stand in regards to this. Now, another thing I want to mention, like I said, it's about equal protections. It's not about special rights. Since all the other groups are protected, I want the community to be protected as well. If none of the other groups were protected, then I wouldn't want us to be protected as well. Same thing with marriage equality. Marriage equality wasn't about special rights. Now, special rights would have been like if we wanted marriage plus the government to cover our honeymoons, which, to be honest, I kind of would have fought for that because I haven't gone on a honeymoon yet and I've been married almost 2 years. But that's really what this was about. Now, I know a lot of people then are saying, well, small business owners, shouldn't they have the right to choose their clientele? Well, small business owners aren't allowed to discriminate when it comes to race, sex, religion, so on and so forth. So I want those same protections. Plus, a number of small business owners can get state, usually they're state, there's not a lot of federal ones, I did research this, but state startup grants, loans, so on and so forth, which come from the taxpayer's dime. So as a taxpayer, you're then telling me that my tax dollars should go to help someone start up a business that they can then tell me, I don't want your faggoty ass here. That's not something that I'm sorry, that's my money. And if you use taxpayer money to start your business, well, you opened a business to serve the public, so serve the fucking public. If you wanted to serve just a certain group of people, this is a Christian bakery. Basically, you've got to be wearing a cross to come in here. That was kind of my view that I had. Now, before people really flip on me, trust me, I've had, I know, because people are like, woo, I'm expressing how I've come with this. Now, another thing people would say to me, well, what if you're a gay baker? And of course, I'm like, what the fuck? Are you trying to stereotype me, cunt? No, sorry. But pretend you're a gay baker, original. And someone was to come in and they asked for you to make a cake where it said all fags are going to burn in hell. All right. To be honest, I actually would make that cake. And let me explain why. I would make that cake. And when they came in to pay for it, I'd be like, here's your cake. And just so you know, all your proceeds, I want to thank you because all the proceeds from this purchase are going to fund an LGBT activist, group. Whether it's an LGBT youth group, so on and so forth. I guess to me, I'm more of a smartass. Now, before I get a lot of people hating on me, I do want to say this. I do want to say, fuck uncle, a drunken uncle called me a gaker. It's a gaker. Anyway, so I will say this though. There is now I feel like I've done enough, criticizing religious, Christian bakers and Muslim. Now I do want to bring up what wasn't focused on, and I believe it was Crowder did this. He actually went into Muslim bakeries.
Yeah.
And tried to purchase cakes, but of course the left wasn't willing to focus on this at all. Which is a hypocrisy that I definitely stand against. However, I will say this. When my husband and I were getting married and we were looking into florists and bakers, I specifically researched gay-friendly places. I specifically took the time to research that because I also understood that this was something new. This was something that we needed to give America time to get used to. Not just those who are religious, but people in general. We needed to give America time to get used to this. So I specifically set out to find bakers, vendors in general that I knew would have no issues catering our wedding. And I do think that there is that responsibility there for couples who are getting married. Take that time, take that effort, because to be honest, it will also prevent you from dealing with that stress, because wedding planning, no matter whether you're freaking gay or straight, is stressful as fuck. Trust me, boys. It's stressful as fuck. You're lucky if you make it to the altar.
I had to DJ for my friend's wedding, and the stress rubbed off on me. I had to have like 2 meetings before the wedding with them, and each meeting went for like over 6 hours, and they were like, no, we can only play 3 Madonna songs, okay? 3 is the limit. And I'm just like, oh my god, I'm gonna kill myself. So yeah.
I was the best man and planner for a lesbian wedding. Yeah. A lesbian wedding. And they would kill me for revealing this, but at the wedding, it was that time of the month for both of them because they had synced up. Yeah, the night before the wedding, that was a fun night.
Did they wear white?
Yeah. Yes. Well,
so it was their second date. I wanted to cross a few things you said. One of them, you said you would definitely bake that cake and kind of be snarky, which is how I feel too. I'd stick my finger in it a little bit and give them some taste of that. But
I'm an asshole,
do you think you should be forced to, under penalty? Do you think you should be forced to bake that cake under penalty? Because that's what I think it all boils down to. There's like a twofold argument here. There's religious protections where the government will protect your ability to express your religion versus separation of church and state. So it is a fine line, and I do get both sides of the argument. But should you be forced to bake a cake that says, fags burn in hell?
No, mind you, to be honest, like I said, this for me is, like I said, it's about equal across the board. Now mind you, for example, our wedding cake, let me explain. For example, our my husband and I, our wedding cake. Okay, our wedding cake didn't say our big fabulous fucking gay wedding.
Sure.
So it didn't say that. Actually, our wedding cake looked like it looked like a tree. It looked like a birch tree, like logs from a birch tree stacked on top of each other. And on the top of it was this heart shape with bucks facing each other. It was definitely redneck as fuck. So this was our wedding cake. So to be honest, if I had went in there and ordered my wedding cake from a baker, and mind you, the top we ordered offline, so we didn't get it through the baker. So I could have totally gone into a bakery, ordered this wedding cake, and not even have mentioned the fact that it was for, a gay wedding, and I would have gotten the cake. So I acknowledge definitely I could have done that, because it's not like we're asking for wedding cakes. I mean, some people might be asking for wedding cakes with fabulous gay wedding on it. I'm sure there are. But that wasn't the case here. Like I said, though, my issue is the equal protections, and it's having the equal protections under the law altogether. If a baker if a baker can tell me to fuck off because I'm a homosexual, then I'm okay with it if they can tell everyone to fuck off for every reason. Like, if they don't want to serve someone because they're a woman, if they don't want to serve someone because of their religion, if they don't want to serve someone because of their race, that's what I care about, is that it's applied equally. But if they can, if a baker cannot discriminate against someone based on race and get away with it, if they could not discriminate against someone based on sex and get away with it, if they could not discriminate against someone based on religion and get away with it, then why should they be able to discriminate against me and get away with it? That's generally, like I said, I really am about equal under the law. That's really where I'm coming from here. A lot of people will argue special rights, but that's not what I'm arguing for. I just want equal protections or lack thereof. Either everyone has them or no one has them. I feel like people don't get that. That's what I'm saying. I'm not asking for special rights. This has never been about special rights for me. I actually would abhor special rights, and it's one of the reasons why I disagree with many on the left, because now we are very much in a phase where they're asking for special rights, asking, affirmative action, asking for all that shit, asking. I see like women, feminists asking for more time off during their periods and all that fucking shit. I mean, this, so I'm not for special rights in that way at all. I don't know. I feel like people they jump on the special rights thing when I have this discussion with them, and I'm truthfully about equal rights across the board. Equal protections or no protections. I don't know. And I don't know if that exactly answered Valyn, but to be honest, if the equal protections, if that forcing was an equal protection, I generally would be against it. To be honest, then, from that perspective, I would support a campaign to remove the protections across the board.
Yeah,
but
I would too.
I have yet to see someone move.
And
But
the
I
thing
need
is
push that.
these companies, they're, when they, sorry, your sound went out. I'm not trying to interrupt you. These companies, when they decide not to bake a cake for a gay person, for instance, they are ostracized. They are called out on social media. They are usually threatened with arson, rape, murder. They're attacked, all these things. So they really are sincere about their convictions. Otherwise, why would they risk it? So I have to give some credence to that sincerity of conviction. But I do agree that if one class is going to be protected, we're going to have to protect them all. I'm all for removing them all and let social interactions do the policing. We do a good job of that on our own. But yeah, I definitely get both sides of it. I definitely get both sides. But back to Trump. Back to why the gays.
I want to say real quick.
Anyways, that's my take on the First Amendment Defense Act. It's all encompassing, basically any person, any business, big or small corporation care would be able to say, fuck you, I don't support fairies because I'm religious.
Okay, real quick, Seraphine66 or Seraphine or fuck, he told me how to say it, but I don't remember anymore. Donated $20 and said that this is a bribe to include the chat in this conversation, just giving you some shit. And so yeah, I don't really have all that much to say about the Religious Defense Act. I think it sounded peculiar. I talked about it a little bit on Monday with Kizum, and that stream is still up if people want to watch it. So I don't feel particularly compelled to talk about it. I will say, though, that slightly unpopular opinion, because I hang out with lots of libertarian type people, I do agree with hate crime laws. A lot of people don't. A lot of people think that you shouldn't get punished more for a motive, because they think that that's some sort of a thought crime. But if you really look into the data behind hate crime laws and what actually happened, like, there's a lot of weird things about hate crimes. They tend to breed. if one starts happening, there'll usually be a rash of them, and other people will start doing them. Like it becomes popular to start beating up the fags or the niggers in your state or whatever, and people realize they can kind of get away with it or something, depending. And yeah, and it just sort of happens. And so hate crime laws are there largely to sort of nip these problems in the bud. And, minority communities do have to deal with persecution because they are minorities. And it actually does pragmatically solve certain problems if you look into the data, and that's why I support them. A lot of people think I'm totally whack and I'm like a shitty commie for saying things like that, but it's just what with the information that I have been presented with. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but there's very compelling essays about why hate crime laws exist. So
I
yeah.
agree with you to an extent, but I mean, I feel averse even calling them hate crime laws, to be honest, because let's think about this and be honest here. They don't affect white people if a black person attacks a white person. So let's just call them minority protections, and then I'd be more okay with dealing with that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But
I do want to agree with Valyn there. I do, especially considering the huge what happened there in January in the Chicago case there, when it was suggested.
but aren't white people the minority in Chicago?
Well,
yeah, well, that's, I know,
on our
right?
way
I know,
to be the
right?
minority of the whole world.
Yeah, so I know that's another thing globally when we speak about minorities, we certainly are. But so I do agree with Valyn on that point, is that we have come to the point where they are protection, they are minority protection laws, such as what happened in January, where I'm watching, especially all the liberal outlets, and none of the reporters can pretty much say, and even in any way call this a hate crime, right?
Yeah.
They can't even fathom it. And that's, to be honest, when I really lost faith in a lot of the networks, the news sources that I used to follow, because when they did cover this, for example, and I as a liberal started noticing this. I would read an article, for example, if it was a white person who was a victim of a hate, not a hate crime, but a victim of a crime, basically the article would read, and I'm just coming up with something, three men, this man, murder him, whatever. But if it was a minority who was a victim of an attack, it was that same thing would be three white men attack a black man. Race was brought into it when the minority was the victim, but race was not brought into it when the white person was the victim and a person of color was, the perpetrator. So I started to acknowledge that, and I also started to acknowledge that even in our own community, gay was brought into incidences when it wasn't needed. There was a while back where a former gay club owner was murdered in his apartment. Okay, and the article read, "Gay club owner murdered," and as if to kind of get people to believe this was a hate crime, when there was absolutely no proof and not even a remote suggestion that this was a hate crime. There was not even the least bit evidence that this was an actual hate crime. So I do agree, and I will even admit this: as much as I am fighting for national protections for the community because all other groups are protected, I would have to acknowledge the fact that especially where the left is concerned, they would definitely take it much more serious with a gay man being attacked by a group of straight men than a straight man being attacked by a group of gay men. That would get a very different spin where the left is concerned. It probably wouldn't even get mentioned where the left is concerned. And I would definitely acknowledge that. But I also feel, I don't know. I feel like this is a topic that definitely cannot be thoroughly discussed in one live stream, where the First Amendment Defense Act is concerned.
Well, yeah.
So I do want to bring it back.
I want to I want to say about the hate crime laws. People are giving me shit in the chat about it. I think that's the thing. Like, I knew that this would happen. I knew that I would bring this up, and people would be like, "Ah, how dare you, thought crimes!" Ah, because that's sort of the libertarian thing that people always do. But ultimately, though, like, I think that I think that it should be considered a hate crime if a white person is attacked racially. I think it should be considered a hate crime if if you can somehow prove the motive that a gay guy beat up a straight person for being straight. Like, I think that I don't know if you should, maybe I don't know if you need to call it a hate crime. I think that it should just be in the way that they classify it as assault. Like, there's murder one, and then there's premeditated murder, and there's blah 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 blah, there's all these different forms. And you should get a little bit more time if you did something simply because of the person's identity without necessarily even knowing them. Like, that's a pretty heinous crime, just because you're some sort of twisted fuck. If you do something like that, you should do a little bit more time than somebody who is mad because some guy's dating his ex-girlfriend.
Sure.
Mm.
I'll tell you why I have a natural aversion. I think that the idea of enforcing hate crimes is very Orwellian. And, personally, I've known at least 10 gay guys right off the top of my head that have faked it being a hate crime when it was just a regular fist fight, sometimes that they instigated, and then they can pull out the gay card or the black card or the woman card. And how do you manage and gauge what someone's intent was? There's always going to be open air around that. So I think it's kind of Orwellian and thought policey, and that's where my aversion comes to it.
Yeah. I included that exact scenario in my gay privileges video. Was the hate crime law thing that you can pull it out even if you lose a fight. You can.
Yeah.
And I will admit, I think it's the first thing that people jump to. And after I say this, I'm going to bring it back to Trump, because this is what we're supposed to be focusing on here. But a quick, I know, right? We're just a bunch of fucking queens. We get off track on a regular basis. This is not a surprise. Anyways, so my ex, years ago, we both worked for Walmart, so Wally World. It was a fun time. And there was a manager. I know, right there. I feel like that's a hate crime against humanity. But anyway, so we were working for Walmart, and one of the managers did not get along with my ex at all. They despised each other. And I remember at the time, my ex's mother, because I was living with them at the time, she goes to me, she goes, do you think that he's hating on my son because he's gay? And it was her first jump to there. And I was like, no, because the manager fucking loves me. I was like, he fucking loves me. I mean, at the time I did love her son. I was like, I love your son, but he's kind of a fucking asshole. So and that's another thing. I've had that experience with friends. I've had friends call, and I do want to bring up one more example. When I was working in hotels, I was in the back area. I was a night auditor. I had my coworker. He was out front dealing with a guest at check-in, and hotels have this practice of walking guests. So get to your reservation fucking early. Get to that hotel early. Anyway, so he, we were sold out, and he was gonna walk the guest. This guest, and started it was fucking homophobia. Is what was behind it. Now I knew my coworker. I come out. And I'm like, okay, let me get this one, because I want you to scream homophobia here. I really want you to scream homophobia here. And so yeah, I will admit and acknowledge, which a lot of people on the left will never do, even some liberals will never do, is that with protection laws, there definitely is a chance for abuse. And especially on the left now, I will acknowledge that I feel that it has increased because the left is, fostering that victim mentality. And since it is fostering that victim mentality, and we do have the national laws where race and sex are concerned especially, there are definitely people who are going to use that to instill fear in companies. And I've even experienced it in a job where I was called racist when I asked a woman for her ID because on the back of her fucking credit card, she wrote CID. And I asked her for her fucking ID and she didn't have it. So I said, ma'am, if you have another credit card with your signature on it or a check or cash, I can take that form of payment, but I cannot take this. She's like, it's because I'm fucking black. No, this is policy, you stupid cunt. But anyway, so I have it. I have experienced that. And I was angry at her, not because she accused, honestly, I wasn't mad at her because she accused me of being racist. I was mad at her because she was basically taking away the legitimacy of someone who does legitimately experience racism, who has experienced racism. She is
You know what?
making it
No,
so
I
people
think it
care
was.
less.
I think it was just your white fragility.
It was my white fragile. I know. I was such a fragile princess back then. Such a fragile queen. Anyways, to bring it back to Trump with the First Amendment Defense Act. This is another thing where I refer to that cousin again. Who she was like, well, I don't think that legitimately is something he would sign into law. But keep in mind, shit, that beer is just coming right up. I know, right? I'm such a fucking gentleman here. Don't, it's the redneck. It's the fucking redneck. But I keep in mind this would have to make it through, through Congress. This is something that if it was introduced would have to make it through. There would obviously be a lot of discussions here, and unlike many on the left, I'm going to acknowledge that we definitely have reached a turning point when it comes to our community where it's concerned, and I think we're definitely moving in a positive direction. So I don't fear the First Amendment Defense Act like I did before. It is something that I'm still weary of, and I'm going to remain weary of. You best believe I'm going to keep a focus on it. You drunk. I'm getting called a lightweight. These bitches are calling me lightweight. No, sorry. So, I want to acknowledge that it first has to make it through Congress. We'll deal with it there. And then, if it were to make it to Trump, which honestly, I honestly don't think it would right now. I mean, call that optimistic, but I feel like we've reached enough of a turning point where it wouldn't. And that's where I want to leave my personal opinion where the First Amendment Defense Act is concerned.
Sure, nothing can make it through San Francisco's veto power right now, apparently, anyway, so I think you're good on that as well. And just in case, there's always Hawaii.
All right, so if we so do we feel that we've beaten that subject enough that
I don't need to talk about it.
I know I'm kind of tired of that as well. All right, so let's go to Trump, winning and the transition team. Okay, so I actually wrote this here. This kind of interestingly enough, a lot of people did not even pay attention to this. Keep in mind, as an activist, I was watching everything very closely. Ken Blackwell, senior fellow at the Anti-LGBT Family Research Council, served as the domestic policy chair of Trump's transition team, and pushing the religious, the First Amendment Defense Act. This is a man who compared homosexuality to and kleptomania. Basically a compulsion that we could learn to control. So when this man became part of Trump's transition team, which a lot of people aren't even aware of this man, by the way.
Yeah.
When I talk to some liberals, to some people, mind you, liberals batshit crazy at this point, they're not even aware of this of this person. But for those of us who were involved and have been involved in the community, this really kind of made us take a step back because Ken Blackwell is very much anti-gay. Like I said, he's compared us to pedophiles. He's compared us to the arsonists and the kleptomaniacs, and that we can learn to control our impulses. And he supports, gay conversion therapy. He's very much anti-gay. If anyone can be described as anti-gay, it is this man. So when Trump made this man part of that team, that ruffled a lot of feathers in the community as well. I honestly think rightfully so to an extent, given this man's history. But I guess I'll throw that out to you guys if you're aware of him.
I remember when that happened, actually, and yeah, I mean, it's a shame. Good thing it's only the transition team, which is not, the most permanent or effective. Or like it's like, okay, what the fuck is this guy gonna actually do that has anything to do with LGBT policies? Like, probably nothing. But no, it's true. But my ultimate, takeaway from this was just kind of like, well, what do you expect to happen when the entire political establishment, as well as media and the entire populace, treats somebody who ends up winning like he's the fucking devil,
Yeah.
do you expect him to get some awesome choice of cabinet members? No, that's why you don't. It's just kind of like what's going on now with the rise of the new white nationalist movement. It's like, yeah, well, duh, like that's what happens when Americans vote for a fucking black president twice and everybody's not racist, and you pretty much know that. Like, everybody's bending over backwards to like not be as racist as, to be as not racist as they can, and then you keep attacking them because sometimes they want to touch your hair or something. Like, this is that eventually they're gonna get racist. They're gonna fucking get sick of your shit. And it's not exactly the same, but it is a little bit, because it's just kind of like, well, what? There's supposed to be some gigantic line of people like trying to get of awesome politicians. Like, you think Trump is going to appoint Elizabeth Warren or something? Is that what you're hoping? Because it's annoying.
No, I actually cannot stand Elizabeth Warren myself.
I can't anymore. I cannot anymore.
Like there was a time when she wasn't, to me, batshit crazy leftist.
When?
But she to me, okay. I guess maybe it was
In
there.
utero.
Just, it didn't fall in
Did it?
utero. Wait, Valyn, do you support abortion in that case? No, I'm just fucking.
Late term.
I know, right? We're late term, very late term. But no, I definitely agree, and I'm like, who did you expect? Especially with what he was kind of left with, because anyone even remotely, any politician even remotely liberal, even if they were conservative, even if they were remotely liberal on social issues, kind of had to distance themselves from Trump. I feel like there was a pressure there. So I definitely hear what you're saying there. And yeah, who would you expect him to appoint? But like I said, Warren, definitely don't support her. But yeah, no, I definitely hear what you're saying there, Prince.
With regards to Blackwell, obviously I disagree with him emphatically on a lot of things that he believes. The one saving grace in that is that he's bringing up things that the left can legitimately fight and would have a stance to actually fight. And while they're busy fighting that, maybe they'll worry less about stupid minutia. So that's about the only saving grace in that. And like you said, he is in a transition team. I do believe this is kowtowing. And like you said, his options were limited and become more limited by the day, it would seem. So I don't see, with guys like that, most people, intelligent Americans see that guy as being extreme. And that's how it should be. And that will stop him from actually making any headway if he were even able to in the first place. So again, a lot of the issues with Trump are non-issues, which is why people had to focus on Pence. Because at first it was Trump hates gays, he's going to put us all into slave camps or some shit. And now all of a sudden it's about Pence electrocuting us all because somebody took one little sentence out of context completely.
Yeah, from fucking like
snowballed.
the 90s when AIDS was still a fucking thing.
Yeah, when Hillary Clinton was saying we shouldn't be able to get married.
Yeah.
I don't even think she was discussing it then.
Oh God, no! She was definitely ignoring that. I think it was more like the later '90s when she was when she was definitely against it. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of what you're saying there. I mean, it's I do look at it now, especially from from I want to say clearer eyes. Less emotional eyes overall. I've been drinking a lot, so the slurs are starting to happen a little bit more.
Yeah.
Hey, it's fun though. So I definitely acknowledge that, and I guess the left was also coming at this because people would bring up the points. Well, these are these people saying these things, and they said these things. So long ago. Would be like it's guilty by association. That's one of the narratives that I've noticed definitely getting pushed as well here is the guilty by association. And as someone who grew up with older brothers who got in trouble with the law on a regular basis, I've been victim of guilty by association. I actually had the cops follow me in my hometown when I was younger because I had, because of the last name. They'd be like, "Yeah, I know you boys. I'm watching you boys." But so the whole guilty by association thing, I think, to an extent, there is a legitimacy if that's all you're surrounding yourself with. That the fact that you're reflected in the company you keep, but to have people around you with opposite viewpoints isn't necessarily reflective of all your values. And I've learned to at least acknowledge that.
Sure, the left seems to engage in neo-McCarthyism more than anyone else right now, and that's what it is. But I have to go to the bathroom really quick, so I'm going to pause my microphone and let you guys continue to talk for just a minute.
Okay, while he is gone, I have something to say about the sort of the guilt by association thing. Actually, wait, no. You know what? I remember him. I want him to hear this because I remember him saying that he used to have a temper. So, let me think about something else. Something related to guilt by association. What would be another thing to say? Um, I don't have anything.
Being white.
What?
I said being white.
Oh, yeah, no. I don't know. Okay, I guess, just the left is so annoying with the way that the left has just gotten so homophobic over the past couple years, and like you'd have to really pay attention to like the right SJW stuff. Like I get the sense that, when you say that you were an SJW, I think that you largely mean a gay male SJW. But I was like very, very, very deep in the culture that breeds the SJWs. I lived in San Francisco and Seattle, which are like the meccas of SJWs. And it was being a gay white guy in San Francisco. You're basically treated as like the oppressor class because that's like straight white guys are treated as more of a minority practically in San Francisco than gay white guys because that's just sort of how things are. So it's annoying, and that shift was annoying. Okay, so Valyn, I was gonna say, we were talking about guilt by association, and you were saying before that you used to have a temper, and I have been so short. Whoa, your cat is loud.
Yeah, I know.
Quiet that pussy down.
I'm throwing things at him. It's not working.
Valyn is throwing things at his pussy. So
You want a treat? Yes. So I have been so short fused on the internet, like on Facebook and shit, with fucking people talking seriously am threatened to, I have threatened to fight people. I have not okay, I don't like to say it's a full-blown threat unless you say that you're going to maybe like attack somebody, potentially go blindside them. But I will definitely say, do you want to say that to my fucking face? Where the fuck do you live at? Where the fuck do you live at? I can walk there, motherfucker. Like, I have done that a few times, and it's because and I think that it took me a second to figure out, like when something just makes you really, really, really mad, and the only thing is that you're really, really mad, and there's a good reason, and you just flip the fuck out. And usually you like lose your cool, and then people are like, "Whoa, chill! Like, what's the matter with you?" And you can't explain why you're so mad. It's that kind of a thing. And what it is when what's happening is that I will express some sort of view that doesn't go with the regressive left narrative. Like I advocate for freedom of speech, and I say it's that people shouldn't, violently protest Milo Yiannopoulos or something, some sort of outlandishly controversial view.
Sure.
And somebody says, why would you say that unless you agree with him? And I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up. And I'd be like, no, but that's dumb. That's a dumb argument. And then the guy says, Nazi says what?
Oh God.
Yeah, and then I'm like, what the fuck did you just say to me? Where the fuck do you live at? You live in my fucking city. Where do you live at? Let's go. Do you want to meet up with me? And at first I was like, why am I losing my cool like this? This has happened like 3 times now. But then I realized that what it really is that like that is what he just said to me is very much close to a threat of violence in the cultural climate that we live in. We are living in a cultural climate in which it's become a leftist pop cultural meme, punch a Nazi, that you're supposed to do that, and that's perfectly acceptable. It doesn't matter. You don't even have to ask them what their views are, basically. Like even Richard Spencer is not actually a Nazi.
Not
He's
at all.
fucking dumb. He's a white nationalist, and he's very cagey about, like what his arguments actually are, but he's not about exterminating people. Like that's not what his deal is if you actually listen to him speak. And the whole like genocide quote that was a meme that people forwarded around. So when somebody starts accusing you of being a Nazi, they're basically saying, I do not care if somebody punches you. In fact, maybe they're saying that they would do it themselves. So I'm like, well, then fucking, do you want to try it? Do you want to fucking try it? Because when it gets to be this cultural narrative, I don't like bullies. I don't like people who talk shit like that. I don't like people who think that they can intimidate people on the internet like that. And I certainly don't like it when it becomes the majority consensus that everybody who does this is on the like winning side because of numbers or some shit. So I will be the person to individually try to shut people down and be like, no, you just said that to the wrong person. Like, I will actually beat the shit out of you. You cannot call me a Nazi. And that's what I'm talking about with guilt by association. Like this is just me defending Milo Yiannopoulos. Now, granted, I probably shouldn't do this. This is probably not a good tactic, and I'm losing viewers while I'm on this ramble. But it definitely makes me really, really angry when people call people Nazis. And because it's like, oh, but in the same climate as it's fine to say it's okay to say to punch Nazis. So yeah.
Yeah, you made a point in your last video where you were talking about how the hate for Trump, the social justice movement, all of that has kind of become a social club, and people have tied their identities to it. And I think that has a lot to do with it. These people are kind of LARPing. They're playing out a fantasy in their head where they get to punch. I'm sorry, my cat. They're playing out a fantasy in their head where they get to punch a Nazi. And in reality, most of them wouldn't lift a finger to actually fight. They would only fight if in a large group. And it is very much bully tactics. And thankfully, as a gay man, I've been able to deal with bullies my whole life. That's nothing new to me. So these people's tactics are kind of a joke. And it's funny to me when they talk about, oh, I'm going to do this to you and we would punch you and this and that. And it's like, I'll shoot you in the head if you ever try and attack me or anything like that. This is nothing new to me. And I really think that they're getting themselves in a little bit deeper than they can handle, which is what we saw at Berkeley when a lot of them got their asses stomped. And now bike lock fag professor guy just got ousted publicly. People are looking for him. I heard reports of the police searching for him actively now. So they're getting in deeper than they can handle, and they're biting off more than they can chew.
Did you watch the Sargon video that I talked about in my video that I uploaded yesterday?
Not yet.
Okay, yeah, you should
No, I haven't
really
had a
watch
chance
that
to.
because it's
I plan to.
so like not just the Antifa, but the BAM, the by any means necessary.
Which is basically the funder and the father of Antifa at this point.
Yeah, well, Antifa is the broader organization where they try to sort of like rope people in, and there's like loose affiliates just to have the numbers. But BAM is actually a cult, like actually a major fucking, like they come very, very close to full on kidnapping people. They trick people into moving in with them. Like this guy shared his story. He moved to Oakland from Detroit, and because they said something like that it was fine to do some, they basically told him something that wasn't true. They tricked him into moving in, and then supposedly they try to get people hooked on prescription medications that they aren't even supposed to take, and then if they want to leave, they will basically they'll steal the people's stuff, they'll steal their ID and their credit cards, and if they try to leave, they'll have 3 people corroborate with each other and tell the cops that the person was stealing from them. And so it's like a full-on cult that these people
I heard there was a support group
and
for
it's
people who left.
what?
I heard there was actually a support group for people who have left BAM.
Yeah, there very likely is. And but what's really creepy and what doesn't surprise me is that it one of the things that people are starting to say is that all of the leaders are the women. And the women are and it's like they know they that they have this sort of like, power over guys. Like women can get away with lying easier because all a woman has to do is play the like crying woman card to the cops and be like,
Yeah.
oh, this, and there's all sorts. So it's this weird like intersectional feminist cult, which we already knew it was, but now it's this like weird, creepy, violent Charles Manson thing.
Like a de
With
facto cult, yeah.
yeah,
So
Well,
I did
there's
want to
ahead.
interject a little bit with Antifa, and I thought we'd definitely get back to Trump and move on to another point. Well, because I definitely want to keep this on Trump. I know we've gotten off it several times. But with Antifa, especially as someone who's been an activist for quite a while, I would never consider them in any way embodying liberal values at all. But one thing I do want to point out, something I found very amusing, with especially a lot of the attendees at the Freedom Rally. First of all, I want to point out that while many of them were conservative and many of them were Trump supporters, there were actually liberals in attendance at this event. There were actually liberals there. It wasn't just that. So Antifa was not just attacking conservatives or Trump supporters. There were classical liberals there, liberals who genuinely still believe in freedom of speech, and they got attacked as well. So there is that. Now, another thing I want to point out with Antifa, having been an activist for 10 years, I was actually brought into it by old school activists. I'm talking activists who lived through the 60s and the 70s. So these were actually hardcore people that had legitimate reasons to fight authority and were involved in civil disobedience, violent acts of protest, especially when the discrimination was legally enforced by the police. Now, so having been brought into that, I look at Antifa and I see a bunch of pussy ass fucking bitches, to be honest. For the most part, I'm sure there are some hardcore psychotics. Like Valyn, I know that one person you were going to debate. I don't know if you ever actually did. That guy looked pretty built, and he looked pretty psychotic. But aside from that, I also want to point out, because a lot of the attendees at the rally were saying, well, the women were at the front of the line and the men were behind, and they were saying that the men were doing this. My thought was, no, this is the infection of feminism. These are beta males. The men are in the back because the women probably put them there. I'm like,
no, that's absolutely the case. And also the women are aware of their female privilege, especially in some and no, because I lived in the Bay Area. Like there's a massive like, it's kind of like, okay, if you're in San Francisco, San Francisco is a town kind of run by gay men. But if you go to the East Bay, like Oakland and Berkeley, it's a place run by women, and it's like what you would think with an intersectional sort of feminist. It's like, but the problem is they organize their ranks based around this like intersectional feminist hierarchy where like women, like it's like, oh yeah, and if we get hit, that just looks bad on them. Well, only for a while, only so long as people are in your corner. But you stir up too much fucking shit and you lose all public sympathy, it's gonna be gone, bitch. Like you're gonna get wrecked, and you have no fucking idea because you've never been hit by a dude. Like this fucking Yvette Falarca woman.
She's a scumbag.
Yeah. Oh, she's a horrible, horrible woman.
No.
If she got hit, like one time, she'd brag about it, and it would be awesome. But if she got laid out, and then a dude got on her and like fucking hit her 5 times in the face, she would move out of the country and never think about her past again. She'd be like, oh my God. And she would be in therapy for 15 years. She'd be like, oh my God, I was a cult leader. And then this dude punched me and got on top of me.
Knocked
and
me the fuck out of it.
Yeah, and I'm still having flashbacks of being, because she's like 5'2" and 102 pounds. She's like this teeny, and the thing that enables her is just her cluelessness of what it's actually like to like get in a fight with a dude. Like you don't, like dudes learn that when by the time you're 14 years old and somebody bigger than you socks you in the jaw, you learn not to talk shit like that. She has never learned that lesson.
One of my SJW friends posted the picture of Modi Locks. I love Modi Locks. I'm gonna continue with that one. Modi Locks getting punched, and my response really pissed my friend off because it was I actually have posted this pretty much as my response to every image I've seen of this as well. Gender equality. Equality of the sexes, right there. He's treating her like he would a man. So there you go. There's the equality. Oh God, did I trigger some fucking feminists? And what I've noticed is female feminists will be like come at you angry, but male feminists will come at you so fucking whiny. It's at least my personal experience is they're so much more fucking whiny, like a dog that's been kicked and it's trying to bark. I don't know. That to me is how I see male feminists now. Especially I hate to say it because especially like straight male feminists who are dating female feminists. I feel like they're even on walking on more eggshells when it comes to this issue. But yeah, I definitely yeah.
Now, can you imagine dating one of these women? Like they keep testicles in a vice. That's their life. And there's videos of Yvette Falarca actively attacking people. And I heard that she lost her teaching job. I haven't checked into that to confirm it. Good. It needs to be eradicated completely.
And her followers, like her little cult, is like terrorizing city government.
Of course they are.
Yeah, they're like going and like so she tried to appeal it, and she had her little a few middle school kids that she had brainwashed, I think all of them being immigrants, and they're like, Yvette is my amazing teacher and she taught me about my rights as an immigrant and a person of color. And it didn't work because it's like, okay, but you realize that she was like physically assaulting people and bragging about it on the news, like having people, and then so her college age fans like stormed in and were just like yelling, and she even threatened to like ruin the political careers of all the people who like weren't letting her teach again and shit. No, she needs to be stopped. Like she's a fucking menace. Like I mean I'm not going to reveal too much on a live stream. I'm going to say I will not shed a tear, basically, no matter what happens to her.
No, neither me. I could care less. She's a scumbag. She's a degenerate, and she's trying to ruin Western civilization. So
and she's literally contributed to ruining people's lives. Like if you watch Sargon's video, and the last like 10 minutes or so is a whole testimonial of this guy's experience. Like some guy who was like tricked into moving in with a house where she was living when he was like 17 or something. He was living in Detroit, and he had some name that sounded like he was a black name, and so she probably convinced him like, oh, white male patriarchy, you should come join. But what she really wanted was muscle, and then he got there and it was like it wasn't what he thought, and then he wanted to leave, and they like stole all his shit and then lied about stuff to the cops so he couldn't leave, and like and it was absolute. No, you can't ruin people's life like that. Like you ruin one person's life like that, you should be behind bars for fucking 10 years.
Definitely. Definitely, and these people, like you were talking earlier, Hammer, that you came up in the SJW movement with people that are from like the old guard of protesting, and she comes into this with some of those tactics, very hierarchical, very broken apart. Like you can see even in the way that they do their protests, they surround her, they form a literal human shield around her. So this is a very concerted movement, and the problem with that is that this has now somehow become profitable profitable for her. I'm sure she gets paid quite a bit for speaking tours and things like that. So even if they did meet their goal, which is nebulous and doesn't really exist anyway, they would have to keep manufacturing problems just to keep the money flow coming in, keep the attention focused on them. And that's what we keep seeing, is that people have become professional victims now, and that there's actually a market for victimhood, and we need to stomp that out immediately. That's what's causing people to get into this shit.
No, definitely. And like I said, to be honest though, I have and this time I'm finally gonna say this and then go to Trump. One of the I know, right? It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, it's gonna happen. Is in regards to the old school activism. I have complete respect for the old school activists. I really do. Like I said, I've met a number of them. I've actually met people who were at Stonewall. I've met people who were at sit-ins where they were protesting, segregation of restaurants, so on. So I've met some amazing people. But the difference is they were protesting legitimate laws that were being enforced
Non-violent.
that were being enforced, and they were non-violent, and when they did get violent, it usually was caused, and it was usually triggered by the police, which at that time there was encouraged bias among police.
Yeah.
So when violence did erupt, then it was totally justified, in my opinion, during that era. But we do not live in that era anymore. And like I said, that's one of my biggest issues with the left, and one of my biggest issues with even friends I have today who do identify as SJWs, is that I yell at them. I'm like, you are acting like you're living in the 1950s and 60s. And some of them will legitimately say they don't think things have improved for anyone since then, any minority groups. But and that's when I say basically go fuck yourself. So to get back to Trump though, the next point I wanted to move on to, and I'm not even sure if I want to focus on this because I don't know why, but he doesn't really even register in my mind. It's weird. This individual doesn't register. I think it's because I look at him and I see like a beaten down bulldog or something. And that is, I know I'm a horrible person. And that is Jeff Sessions. I know Jeff Sessions for a number of reasons. There was a lot of regarding race and the LGBT community and women and so on and so forth. But I know one of the issues, and I don't want to beat a dead horse to death, was that he had made a statement in January of this year supporting the First Amendment Defense Act, and that was one of the last big things that I saw them jump on. And then, of course, there was the trans bathroom, issue. So I don't want to focus so much on Jeff Sessions. I think we can talk about him for a little bit. For some reason, like I said, I don't know why, but like, my mind blocks him out. I don't know how to explain it. Like I don't really give him a lot of thought. Because I feel like, I don't know. I feel like when he speaks, I feel like I tune out like I did with my parents when I didn't want to listen to shit for some reason. But what is your guys' opinions on Jeff Sessions? I honestly considered him, like I said, I considered him kind of like a battered dog. If he has any bark, he sure as fuck. I don't feel like he has any bite. I don't know. What do you guys think of Jeff Sessions overall?
Anybody? I don't think of him much either, honestly. I don't know too much about his history per se, just from what I've heard since the election and everything. And, I've heard a lot of issues with him disliking people of color and the LGBT community. But again, when you go back into these people's direct quotes, which is where I tend to take my information from, is direct quotes, and even more so actions, there's not that much to substantiate it. I mean, the man tends to take a moral high ground, but what right-wing Christian doesn't do that? That people are acting like this is some egregious new thing, that this person is solo and that this is a new phenomenon, and this is not new whatsoever. This is not unheard of. This is a legitimate opinion that people have. I mean, we could do a whole live stream about what is homosexuality in the first place. No one really knows to that extent. Science isn't out on that. So I don't think he's that bad. I think that the gays have been usurped. They've been co-opted. Again, I keep bringing that up, but it's true. They've been co-opted by not only the feminist movement, but social Marxism as a whole is all about about destroying Western civilization and making a big gaping wound for socialism and communism to slip in. And I think that that's what we're realizing right now. The power elite structure, the money in the elite has moved from what used to be a right-wing dominated area into the left. So now we see people like Soros and, you know, people in the chat were talking about that, but we have people that are pushing this agenda even further, and the gays fell for it.
Yeah, I did not hear a bit of what you said because I walked to use the bathroom with my laptop, and it cut in and out. So because my Wi-Fi is.
We're talking.
but I know what we're talking about.
Sure.
I just didn't hear all of what Valyn was saying, except for I did hear the last part, and what you're saying is definitely true. It's absolutely true that Hillary Clinton bragged in a Goldman Sachs speech that she shifted the Democratic Party to be the Wall Street Party.
Yeah.
So all of the money became focused on preserving the Democratic Party as the kind of oligarchy, you know, backed that. And I think what they kind of did was they were like, well, during the Bush years, this was easy because we had the religious right and the evangelicals who were like, you know, so out of touch with reality that they, you know, like wouldn't listen to Britney Spears music because she was a slut, and, you know, like that kind of thing. And it was like these people who were incredibly not just dogmatic but protective of their own worldview, so that they would, like, you know, if anybody tried to challenge their faith, they would be like, how dare you, you know, like we vote Bush because he's the Christian, and you can't have a conversation with these people. The left decided, well, we got to figure out a way to do that too. Well, let's look at our voter base. Like, how do we do this? And so they kind of came up with, you know, they sort of used the social Marxist thing, which ended up manifesting itself in intersectional feminism, because that was the one way to, it was not just, we're looking out for all the minorities, which is, you know, in a lot of the biggest, if you take all of the different minorities and combine them, that's one of the biggest voting blocks for the left. But then it also put women on top and said, you know, women are the ones that are looking out for all the minorities. So yeah, but I don't know how I could relate this to Sessions. I don't really pay all that much attention to Sessions as well. I don't know. People get pissed off about the marijuana thing, that he's said that maybe he's gonna federally prosecute marijuana. But I don't know how much I really believe that.
Yeah, I really don't believe that so much. And to be honest, I guess it's not so much because someone did kind of someone mentioned in the live stream. I'm not going to scroll back up, but someone mentioned that they have a lot of respect for Sessions, and that he's going to basically do what Trump, you know, what Trump says, what Trump wants him to do. And I think to me, that's one of the reasons I don't give him a lot of thought, especially is because he wasn't someone I initially looked at as being there necessarily with their own agenda. I think he honestly will just follow what Trump says. You know, I think a lot of people, they're focusing on, you know, the nominations, those surrounding Trump, who they feel are definitely there with their own motives and are definitely pushing an agenda. And I think, I don't know. I guess I've always looked, I've seen Sessions as a little bit, I don't know. I think he's honestly just there to do his job. I guess that's kind of how I've come to view Sessions. I'm not thrilled about a lot of things from his past, and I'm not thrilled about him in general. But I'm not going to make him a focus by any means, personally. But some people do make him a focus, and I do see him brought up in conversations from time to time, which I wanted to move on to my next point, kind of use that as a segue, is, you know, when the Trump administration rescinded Obama's rule on transgender students using bathrooms, you know, using the bathrooms of their choice. If you don't mind, I'd like to move on to that, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
You guys, okay. So when this happened, I personally, I was already out of the SJW mindset, so I actually took the time to look into this and go back to Obama's first, which, by the way, it wasn't an executive order, it was a guideline. A lot of people are confusing that. Excuse me. So anyway, so when Obama put this into play, he did not put any mandates any restrictions on it. It had no rules regarding, even someone dressing in the attire of the gender they identify with. There was no rules during it. Not having been clinically diagnosed, not having been, diagnosed with gender dysphoria, there, by a doctor. There was absolutely no regulations where this was concerned. So once I understood that and read up on that, to be honest, I actually agree with it, and I know oh god, saying that right now, if any of my SJW friends, they'd probably be outside my fucking apartment with a torch right now. But I do agree with it because there were no requirements there. There, like in Blair White in one of her videos, because she got flooded after it happened. She got flooded with requests for comments, and even she said there were no requirements. She was like, first of all, I agree with her that I do not believe with children, minors transitioning, but even if they are, then in the context of high schools, there should at least have been a medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria where this issue is concerned. And Obama's, when Obama did this, when he put these guidelines into place, this wasn't even taken into consideration. So this is one of those things where it definitely pissed off the LGBT left. But me personally, I actually agreed with it, and yeah, that got me a lot of hate. So what do you two think of that? Are you? Oh, Valyn, I can't hear you. Are you?
Oh, well, he's not working. Okay, so
Okay.
God, I don't think I read over the exact wording of it, but I guess I'll just say that the way that transgenderism has started to be pushed upon children does strike me as abusive personally.
Mm,
And I I have a lot of transgender friends and audience members that I talk to, and they definitely, are very adamant about, people having the right to transition at least when they're a teenager and maybe go on hormone blockers and that kind of thing. So I'm not going to say I fully agree with Blair White, who thinks very much that it should only start when you're 18 and that kind of thing. But at the same time, there are parents that are now, it's like trendy to think your kid is trans. And I
mm.
know people that I don't know, I can't say I know anyone who's done that, and like, oh, I have a transgender 6-year-old, but I do know people that would be like that if they did have kids that were 6 years old. And I also know that my mother was very, she kind of she kind of, I wouldn't say was a hardcore feminist exactly, but she was infected with, I grew up during the 80s and I was a kid, in the late 80s when third wave feminism was popular, and I grew up in Seattle, which is like maybe the most feminist city in the US. So
Mm.
my mother definitely like had her moments where she was trying to push me to be less boyish and like, instead of getting me action figures for Christmas, she would get me like a fire truck because she was like, it's non-violent. And it was like, I don't really want this. It's not, I look back on that and I'm like, oh, my mom was being, at least she wasn't being like a total fucking piece of shit and signing me up to like ballet lessons or something where I didn't want to,
Mm.
because that would have been really awful. Like, it's like, okay, you can get me this stupid fire truck, I'm just never going to play with it. That's fine, whatever. But at the same time, I know that, knowing that my mom kind of did that to me, as femme as I maybe kind of, well, I wasn't actually that femme of a kid. I was very into action toys and video games and shit like that. But like knowing that, my mom was kind of like trying to feminize me actively a little bit and, get rid of my toxic masculinity. And that was in the 80s, like I can imagine that there are fucking parents that like do this shit. And um
Definitely.
so
Mm-hmm.
so so it does creep me out that they're, are trying to have this like bathroom thing in elementary school and middle school and high school. It's like, what is the real purpose of that? Like, you it doesn't really feel like it does anything besides enable parents to think that it, because like if a kid's going to be trans and is like it's a really big thing for them, it's going to be rough no matter what. You know, it's like it's going to be, it's not like their life is going to be like automatically super much easier if the school allows them to use whatever bathroom they want to. Like, for the actual trans kid, for the kid who's like actually wants to end up going through transitioning, you know, and is like feeling like their life is already going to be shitty. It's already going to be hard for them using whichever bathroom, you know, when they're little. So, you know, what this really seems to do is sort of compromise all of the other kids and make it sort of seem like they can sort of just pick and choose if they want to, and their parents can, you know, impose their will on them, and that's where it gets weird to me.
Yeah, I did a video addressing the transgender bathroom issue, and before I did it, I read the entirety of Title IX, and you know, it was originally introduced in '72 to protect against gender discrimination throughout the education system. And then during the Obama administration, they made some amendments to the guidelines, which were emailed out to our schools all over. They never even called it transgender protection until Trump wanted to undo it. And the act of undoing it is really symbolic. It really didn't do that much anyway, except for set forth guidelines on how schools should address this new issue with transgender bathrooms. And like Hammer said, the problem with it is that there is no basis in science whatsoever, and they specifically speak in the guidelines about not asking for proof from a doctor, just accepting the student's word. So I just don't understand where the lack of scientific basis comes in. Why do we need a doctor's note to call out sick, but we don't need one to go into the male bathroom with a pussy? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And schools have already been caught enforcing this in a strange way. There was a story I just read the other day about a boy being made to change in a locker room around girls to desensitize him to it because he had expressed aversion to this trans bathroom issue. So it's really not even an issue. It's a non-issue in my opinion. Trans people have been using the bathroom all of this time. It was never called protections until Trump went against it, and the act of removing it is sheerly symbolic. So again, I think that in this case, this is one of those issues that possibly Trump is dangling for people to focus on because it's a non-issue in reality. And while they're focused on that, he can get other things done while that kind of thing is held up. It's really not that big of an issue to me. Again, and if they really wanted to solve it, they would do it by age, I think, and not by gender.
Yeah. And I think the focus on children transition is what really brought this to the forefront anyways, especially where high schools are concerned. Because before this, it's honestly for the community, even for the community, the LGBT community, this focus on bathrooms kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of us. And I really view as it being reflective of the infection that is the transgenders. Because trans people have been using the bathrooms of their choice forever now. I mean, you know, especially those who pass. Trans people have been using bathrooms of the gender they identify with, and this did not become an issue until the transgenders. That's when the shit became a focus, and then of course we brought children into this, youth, which on my personal channel I actually did a video where what if I had SJW parents, and I look at my past as a child. I will admit I enjoyed action figures as well, but I was definitely a fucking fairy ass little child. When I ran and I was playing, the glitter just sparkled right behind me. I was definitely, so I look at this, and for example, I preferred playing with with little girls. I did play dolls when I was younger. I did all that. Now I look at a lot of these, a lot of these characteristics I possessed when I was little. And I think about it, if I had SJW parents, they might have perceived this to mean that I was trans and wanted to be a girl. I'm quite happy being a fucking man.
Yeah,
I'm very happy being a man.
Or what if they told you? What if they told you when you were, first realizing that you kind of had crushes on guys? Well, you don't have to be a boy if you don't want to.
Exactly. No, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And someone's like sorry, someone just commented Sarah Sierra Fine 666 said yeah, so you radiated fabulosity. Yes, I very much did. So I can't help but think of that, you know, it's they could have encouraged me one way or another. If I had SJW parents, they would I feel like I could have been led down a path where I would have been very fucked up right now. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm fucked up in a number of ways, but I'm not fucked up where my gender is concerned.
Yeah. Um,
So, so yeah.
Jordan B. Peterson, that doctor that I showed you guys the clip of the first time that we
Yeah.
chatted, you know,
Mhm.
who hopefully everybody in the chat is familiar with. If not, he's the social psychologist who works in Canada at the University of Toronto, and he specializes in authoritarianism, and how authoritarian regimes come into being. And one of he you know, he's dealing with the transgender fucking pronoun laws that are coming into pass in
Mhm.
federal level in Canada. And one of the things that he said was that, you know, because of the fact that he was not willing to start calling people by arbitrary gender identities, you know, he wanted to only call people he and she, and yeah, that's it. He's, you know, he's not going to do any zim zers, or, you know, even the singular they, because that's not how people talk, and it's, you know, you have no right to ask that of somebody. And once he started getting into this big debate, you know, in terms of like with the authorities trying to demand that he do this, he started trying to talk to, you know, psychologists and stuff that have really studied transgenderism. And one of the things that he talked to an expert, like somebody who had maybe his main practice for a very, very long time, was dealing with people struggling with transgender identities, you know, like working them through, do you actually want to transition, blah 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 blah. And he ended up being a very well respected person in the field. But he did this for many years, and one of the things that he found was the vast majority of transgender, or questioning transgender youth, people who have thoughts that maybe they're a girl or a boy, but they're like, you know, 14 or whatever, the vast majority
Mhm.
of them um end up deciding, if you know, if you give them proper, you know, if you really ask them the questions for a year or so, and make sure that this is, you know, like you really tell them what will happen if they transition and all that stuff, most of them, like 80% of them, decide not to, and then realize in a few years that they were just fucking homosexual the whole time anyway.
Mhm.
And then they
Yeah.
get used to the fact of their biological body. And I feel like I was kind of like that to a certain degree. Like I remember probably being like 12, wishing I was a girl just because it would have been easier.
Yep.
And if I was, you know, a little bit more girly, and, you know, like I could have easily ran with that notion and started thinking, oh, transgenderism is an option. And then, you know, when I was a teenager, I was like super skinny, and would kind of wear like some sort of girly clothing sometimes, occasionally, and sort of style my hair slightly girly. I can only imagine what my hair would be like if I was a teenager right now. God. And um
Yeah.
and then I didn't. I stopped being like that, and I grew up. I got a little bit bigger. I got a little bit hairier, and then I got a little bit more comfortable in my male skin. And now I'm totally happy being a male. The only thing that's not masculine about me is my voice. So
Sure. When I
I'm
first
about
came out, I lived with a trans woman, and her and her trans friends, I was about 14, 15. They were constantly trying to get me to go on hormones, telling me, oh my God, if you start now, you'll be passable, you know, before you finish puberty. And if I had been a weaker willed individual, I would have definitely went with that and regretted the hell out of it for the rest of my life.
Mhm. And I've seen some YouTube videos where people talk about identifying as non-binary, and what they talk about is their friends pointing this out to them.
Yeah.
That they never even thought about it until their friends continued to point out to them. And I'm about to send you guys a photo through Twitter quick, just because I think it's amusing. This is a picture of a photo shoot that I did, where if someone were to see this photo today on the left, they would probably be like, oh, there's a non-binary person. No, I actually did this photo shoot for a friend, and it's from a Halloween costume
I
that
saw
I did.
this.
You did see that one when I went as the Gothic Fairy?
Oh, maybe.
Did I
don't
show you
know.
that one?
I think you should
I don't know.
show us.
I'm sending it to you right now. It's one that I did, and it was interesting. In 1 second, I'll show you like the full thing. This is legitimately a look that I did. I did this for a costume originally. A friend
Where
saw
are you
it.
sending it to me?
Twitter.
Okay.
And I did this photo shoot. And originally it was a Halloween costume. I went as a Gothic fairy. The original concept had wings. And I look at that picture now that I did it just for a photo shoot for a friend. And I'm like, someone would probably steal this image and use it as, oh, non-binary.
Yeah.
And
I saw this. Yeah.
It's definitely not. And it's yeah. But for those of you who are watching, yeah, I'm wearing black.
No,
I have
I'm sure.
like makeup.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, you guys, I have this joke that I made up. Feminist logic: women are superior to men because non-binary.
Patriarchy.
Oh my God! Yeah. Like I said, that was a war recently on my Facebook. Was that whole thing when I'm arguing, and I know Valyn, I'm not sure. Did you see that one? I know you saw the one regarding race, and you saw the one regarding abortion. I wasn't sure if you saw the whole battle regarding regarding the whole non-binary argument.
No, I missed that one, thankfully.
Oh God, I know it went batshit fucking crazy. But okay, so to kind of get off that, I kind of want to move on to another aspect where people are flipping out and putting shit on Trump, especially where the LGBT community is concerned. If you guys don't mind, if you're ready, I'm ready to move on to that.
Yep.
All right, so we've had a few court rulings occur over the past couple months. A few things take place. One of them was, and I have an article right here, the title is Court Rules Civil Rights Act Doesn't Protect Against Anti-Gay Discrimination, 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, 2-1 decision. However, since that time, I believe it was the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals came out, with an opposite ruling. But at the time that this came out, it was just that court. And then also Supreme Court refuses to hear trans bathroom case out of Virginia that dealt with Title Title IX of the Civil Rights Act, which protects a student from discrimination based on sex. All right, so these cases, the court's willingness to hear them or the court's ruling against them are definitely being, the left is now arguing, saying that they are doing this because of pressure from Trump in the Trump administration. I don't buy into that shit personally. I personally think a lot of these courts, right or wrong, this argument, they tend to follow, especially the Supreme Court, they tend to look at where society stands on a subject and then decide where to, kind of decide to take it on from there. But in general, first of all, I do want to discuss this 11th Circuit Court ruling. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
A little bit.
Are either of you familiar with that? Okay. So yeah, that basically they ruled that anti-gay discrimination isn't covered under the protections of sex. Which one of the arguments that has been successfully fought on the state level, where protection of homosexuals are concerned, is that it is discrimination against sex. Now, how they've been arguing this is that you are, for example, if I was to be fired from a job because I'm with a man, I would not have been fired if I was a man with a woman.
Yeah.
If you get where I'm going.
You wouldn't have been fired if you were a woman with a man.
or vice versa. So I wouldn't have been fired if I was a woman with a man. Therefore, if you argue it from that standpoint, it very much is an argument for discrimination based on sex.
Yeah.
That is one of the arguments that is now being put forward, and it has been put forward on the state level for a while now. Which, to be honest, is kind of I've always found that a very interesting way to approach the matter. Is if we were protected under sex and didn't go for our own, homosexuals protected. But with this case specifically out of the 11th Circuit, this woman, that's not where she came from with this. She came from the fact that she was a lesbian who dressed very masculine. So that is really what this court reacted to. That's what her case focused on, was how she presented herself visually, not the fact that if she was a man with a woman, she wouldn't have been discriminated against as she is, as a woman who's interested in women. They focused more on her personality traits, the fact that she was more masculine, and her attire. So I do want to point that out because I feel like the SJWs, the left, jump on this. And I'm like, to be honest, the way they presented this case was fucking flimsy as fuck. But overall, regardless of these cases, I feel that tying them to Trump is such a fucking stretch that I don't know. I mean, what are your views on this? On this sudden need to basically any kind of anti-LGBT view that a politician expresses, that a court expresses, is now automatically tied to Trump. I personally find that to be ridiculous, and I'm not even a fan of Trump.
I was just annoyed when the guy in Seattle who got shot at the Milo protest, who I was there. Antifa people were physically attacking people, trying to block people from getting in. It was chaos, pandemonium, and then this guy gets shot, and he's like, "Oh, it's Trump's fault." It's just like, fuck you, dude. And I'm not gonna. I don't know what happened. It's not like I was there right when the person shot somebody. I'm not gonna say I endorsed a shooting, blah 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 blah. But okay, you did definitely show up to shut down a free speaking engagement. So you're not on the right side of history when you play victim here, because you could have just let them go in. They're not going to come out trying to cut off Jews' heads or whatever.
This year has been, it seems like this year is gearing up to be the year of really fucked up court precedent. And we're seeing the courts make all these strange decisions that if they don't get overturned in the Supreme Court are going to open us up to a quagmire of legal problems in the future. One of those being what you were just talking about, on top of the immigration thing being struck down, everything being struck down by these courts. They're trying to basically say that illegal immigrants have the same rights under our Constitution that you or I have. And we see this a lot right now with these court precedents coming down from these wacky, liberal, leftist, crazy judges. And I think that it's going to harm the whole movement altogether on both sides. It's benefiting nobody for the court to make these type of decisions. And the precedent that it sets will eventually work against the very liberals that are doing it right now. And they don't seem to see past their nose at the moment right now.
Actually, I very strongly agree with what you just said. That's something that I've noticed. So one of the things about California, California being one of the wackiest states in the union, the California legal bar requirement, they say it's so difficult or wacky. Only about 1/3 of the people who take the bar every year in California pass it. So 2/3 of people are failing this test. And I had a friend who's a very, very smart guy, and he was studying for the bar, and he was always posting about it on Facebook, and he failed. He was one of the fucking people that failed. And if I consider somebody pretty smart, they're probably, I'm not saying I'm all that smart, but I'm not a fucking dumbass. And he was one of the smarter people that I know. And I was like, what? He failed. I ended up a few months later in an argument with some California lawyer who she thinks she's hot shit, and she represents immigrants who work in what's it called? agriculture, like immigrants who work picking vegetables in fucking
Mm-hmm.
California. And she was the dumbest fucking person that I had been in an argument all week. And she was like such an incredibly stupid person. We were talking about one thing, and the person was like, well, she inserted the whole thing where I had to agree with my friend who was a person of color, and I was like, well, no, but he's not actually right. That's not logical. Like, I don't have to agree with him just because of his skin color. And she was like, oh yeah, I bet you know a lot about sexism too, and you're gonna tell me about feminism, and I'm a woman. And it's just like, you're a fucking moron. And then
Yeah.
she was like, I know how to argue. I'm a lawyer. I've been on CNN. And it was just like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
yeah, no, she's been on CNN representing
Damn.
representing immigrants' rights, and blah blah blah. And eventually, what I came to the realization is like, wait, this the California court, the legal system, the reason it's so hard for lawyers to pass the bar, it's not because it's just hard, it's because it's nonsensical. It's because they have such horrible precedent that doesn't actually probably make a whole lot of sense, that the vast majority of people can't even follow it. Especially probably smart people, and the people who can are fucking ideologues. The people, because and I remember, and I even told her that in the conversation. Like, by the end of it, I was like, "You're a fucking idiot," and I feel sorry for any sort of oppressed immigrant that you represent. And it really makes me wonder what the fuck is actually on the bar exam. Oh, and she was like, I passed it the first time. And I'm like, I am absolutely not surprised, because whatever the fuck is on that fucking test is wacky ass shit. And you're the only kind of person that would pass it, because you make no fucking sense. So
I happen to know a lot of lawyers, just randomly throughout my life. Not that I've needed them, but as friends, and a lot of them are fucking degenerates. Drug-riddled degenerates, and that's just comes with the territory, I think, of defending scumbags.
No, I definitely, and to get back to that, I also it is interesting because I have a few friends who are involved in law. They're law students, and it's funny. I was working for a hotel, kind of a quick offshoot. I was working for a hotel that hosted the bar exam in my state, and it was amusing because that was a chaotic time of year, and oh my god, are they fucking stressed? And some of them were there their third time trying to pass the fucking bar exam. But I will admit, some of my friends who are in law school, they've expressed to me that there is this pressure to definitely come across as having more of a liberal interpretation of basically law in general. If they express any kind of conservative interpretation of a law, they are definitely chastised, even in classes, and especially among their peers. Among their fellow students. At least that's the discussion. Those are some of the discussions I've had with some of my friends who are currently law students. So I think it's even being seen in college. And Valyn's pussy's going crazy again. His pussy's just going nuts. It's going wild pussy. Sorry, it's about it. So yeah, I mean, to get back to that, I do feel like there is this focus now on the left where any kind of perceived anti-LGBT opinion expressed by a politician or a court is somehow a result of Trump. That was kind of my point that I wanted to make there. I don't agree with that, and it's something that I definitely try to call out more. But as Valyn has seen, interacting with my friends who are more SJW is it's a fun experience. But so I'm ready to move on to actually the my next bit quick. It's kind of, I think, one of the bigger ones that at least many in my circle have been focusing on recently. So if you guys are okay with that, I was ready to bring that up.
Okay.
Okay. Of course, and I had my paperwork in a separate folder, so I cannot cite the fucking executive, the number of the executive ruling, which pisses me off. But Obama's executive ruling where federal contracts was concerned. You're both aware of that, correct? Where it protected LGBT people. All right. So the Trump, he signed an executive order, and initially this was reported as a complete repeal of Obama's executive order. And then it later, at least those that have some integrity, started not saying it was a complete repeal, but a gutting of Obama's executive order. And I actually looked into it. Interestingly enough, Trump's executive order did not even touch Obama's executive order specifically mentioning the LGBT community. It did not even touch that specific order, which a lot of people are screaming that it did. Like I said, I wish I had my folder here because then I'd be able to give the numbers for it. But anyways, so what Trump's executive order did, and I'm not sure how familiar you two are with this, is that it actually removed a requirement for these companies to prove that they haven't discriminated against someone for a 3-year span. This is what Trump's executive order did. It's still illegal where federal contracts are concerned to discriminate against people in the LGBT community and also discriminate based on race, sex, religion, so on and so forth. That's still illegal across the board. But it removed the requirement for these companies to prove that they haven't for a period of time before being awarded these contracts, which it removed it not just with the LGBT community is concerned, but it removed this requirement across the board. And to be honest, I was okay with that.
Yeah.
And the reason I was okay with that is because it was applied across the board.
Yep.
This executive order affected all the groups involved, and I'm actually okay with that.
Well, yeah, there's a market for discrimination, like HR. That I remember Gavin McInnes doing a video where he was talking about Rebel Media and not having HR department and how there was this camaraderie inside of the company where people could bust each other's balls without fear of retribution. And it has become an industry to sue for discrimination. So I'm all for that executive order. And I've seen the most asinine, ridiculous shit get blamed on Trump. People are blaming Venezuela's current situation on Trump. Like, you can't stretch that to work, no matter how hard you try. So
I think what that is fucking. Didn't George Soros actually like destabilize Venezuela? Like, wasn't that one of his projects?
I heard that it was. I haven't been able to confirm anything like that. I haven't really done that much research into what the motivation is, but socialism will do that anywhere. We've watched it happen everywhere. They took over, I think it was GE plant, some plant that was over there. The government took over, evacuated everybody, and they're de facto socialist. People are animals.
Yeah, but one of the things that George Soros does is he if a leader is not cooperating, he decides to destabilize their government, and then when everything collapses, they put in a sort of a puppet government. And he's worked with several leaders, globalist type leaders, the global elites. Not to sound like Alex Jones, but it's actually true. Sure. I mean, this is something that happens. I think that the thing is with Soros at this point is he's just getting senile or something, and he doesn't understand that the world isn't as he remembers it during World War II, and during the Vietnam and Korean War or whatever the fuck, he was getting his global politics, and now it's just this this mess, and so with Venezuela, Soros likely was the one who did that, but Trump is the big thorn in his side at the moment. Yeah. So he'll just blame everything on Trump because he's fucking senile. He's just losing it. He's just the crazy old king that
I won't even give him the benefit of that doubt. I think that he's just been exposed, and it all seems a lot more insane now that we're witnessing it. But I don't think he's changed much. I honestly don't. I think it's just come to light a lot more. I think this is status quo for globalists, and this is why nationalism is so important to the country right now. I would like
Oh,
to.
I
I would
wanted
like to think he was senile, but you know, regarding the Trump thing, these liberals. No, I shouldn't say liberals anymore because I got a couple around me. But
to.
these leftists, these Marxists, these socialists, whatever the fuck you want to call them, they will blame Trump for the sky being blue. They'll blame him for anything, and people will accept it as truth. And I think somebody in the comments earlier said one of the best ways to deal with them is to laugh at them like the idiots that they are, and that's basically where we're getting to now. It's all ridiculous.
Oh, I fucking love it. I have laughed so much since, since fucking the election night. Like
Till I cry.
it was kind of like a now who's laughing, now who's laughing kind of a fucking thing. No, because the fucking pricks in my goddamn social sphere were so cruel to me as an individual because I was the privileged white male that like happened to be a relatively successful, like, okay, this sounds shitty, but in terms of the art scene in the Bay Area, now granted, there's not a great art scene in the Bay Area, and there never will be because it is way too expensive to live there, and it's way too small of an area that does not have a big, like, entertainment infrastructure. So it's like you can be in the Bay Area and there's all sorts of art going on and people like, want to be artists and they'll show up to your show and you can have a really great time. You'll never make money and you'll never get exposed outside of the Bay Area. And that's just sort of what it is. However, I did really quite well in the Bay Area as, as an artist, as a musician and a theater maker in terms of like how well that you can do. But when the scene was over, everybody was just like, well, the only reason that you did pretty well was because you're a privileged white male. And there was nothing I could say that would stop them from this like vicious bigotry towards me. And then like all the people that I had, every drag queen that I had like not given enough attention to, because I used to make music with drag queens. I was like the producer that produced the drag queens. And every drag queen that apparently wanted to get my attention and I like didn't give a shit about her, they all came out of the woodwork to fucking to fucking tell me off on Facebook. You're a fucking privileged white male and you're not even that talented. And I don't know why some people think that you're hot because you're fucking fat and balding. Like like it was like
Nice.
actually like that. Like over and over for like, and it was just this terrible thing. And then when I started, like coming out of like being an assumed far leftist just because of my, because I literally deliberately unplugged from politics for like almost 10 years, starting in 2005, because it became too much for me. And then when it became 2015, and I was like, wait, I have to start paying attention to politics again because everything's getting crazy. It got even worse because it was like, wait, these are the things that matter. And people were like, you only say that because you're a privileged white male. And I was like, Jesus fuck. You guys were already saying that to me 6 months ago when I was talking about leaving the Bay Area. Now you're getting even worse. Like, and at that time I was supporting Bernie Sanders and they were still saying that shit. And so it got worse and worse and worse. And these people showed themselves to be the most petty pieces of shit that they could possibly be. Like I had given, I had bent over backwards trying to appease these people for so fucking long. And then when I did it through politics, I was trying to like look really, really genuinely look out for what I thought was the greater good and like appease the most people that would be happiest by what I was saying. And, like every bit of good intentions that they should have been able to detect, it didn't matter. It did not matter. I was still the privileged white male that they were jealous of. Honestly, it really was jealousy, and they fucking spit in my face after I did everything for them. I bent over backwards for these people. Now who's laughing? I do not care about your Trump tantrums. Go to hell.
Yep, and they hate it.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because one thing I notice, and I've been accused of, because despite the fact I've been very honest about this, and as I admitted on a live stream with you guys, while I can't say that I'm happy that Trump won, I'm definitely happy that Hillary lost. And I have, when I have discussions with a number of my friends now, if I don't blame everything on Trump, that means I support Trump. that means I am basically Trump's, gay lover, and I'm I'm a bear for Trump. I wouldn't be able to fit in with the twinks for Trump, but apparently I'm a bear for Trump, and it is funny, like just how crazy they're getting. And when I was expressing my views regarding the non-binary situation there, and the thousands of genders, someone commented is like, well, why don't you just face the reality that you're just really a conservative in disguise, or you're just really this in disguise, or you're just really that. And it's just crazy, because the left has really gotten to the point where you can't disagree on anything without completely being, well, Trump supporter, Nazi, Hitler, whatever the fuck.
I think that's
we're at this point.
I think that's because literally the left, the left incorporated, is basically wrong about absolutely every issue. And so, like, when you are, like, when you're wrong about absolutely everything, you will call anybody else, on the other team, because they sort of almost have to be. Now, it sucks because it's like, I don't think that the right is right about everything, but I am certainly more willing to, like, be okay with what's going on now than, like, fucking living in Hillary Clinton's North Korea of America. Like, fuck that. like I'm gonna try to go out next week. I haven't gone out since well before the election, probably at least 3 or 4 months before the election. I didn't go out in my city where gay people would be, but a good friend of mine's birthday was like this past week, and I told him a few weeks prior that we were going to have dinner because he misses me. I've been literally scared of like going to gay bars, because like I know what happens when people defact,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I carry a collapsible baton with me everywhere I go. And but I want to see him, and then this girl invited me to something, and it's mostly a straight night, but my friend apparently goes every week, every month, or whenever it happens. He's a DJ, so he goes to the other DJs, even if they're straight. Sometimes they're nights, and so I'm gonna go out, and wait, what? Why was I even saying that? Shit, I had a punchline for that. I was like living it. I was like going
you're
through
losing your game.
And I was going through it in my head. I'm like, is everything going to be okay? Am I going to be all right when I do this? And then I forgot like why I was actually saying that. Oh no, yeah, I know. So what I'm gonna do, and because the thing is, like, people gossip about me in my fucking city. Like, they gossip about me. Like, even before I started my YouTube channel or anything, and before I was like hardcore shitlord and just like would not take any of their shit anymore. People say the most absurd things about me. Like, people say that I'm like a meth addict and stuff, like weird shit.
I get that a lot too. I don't know why. I've never even done it. It's weird.
Oh yeah, you told me about the meth addict thing. Yeah, like I said, the cheekbones are amazing, but
no, I'm like, are you saying I'm skinny? Because like, thanks, I don't think you've seen a recent picture of me. No, but the thing is, like, they say these very absurd rumors. They can't handle this idea that you have a lot of information that contradicts their narrative, so they assume that you must be absolutely batshit crazy, and that that you don't have any friends, and it's all your problem. But I think it's been long enough where the left is starting to implode. Like, if you look at like what's going on between like Bernie Sanders like talking some shit in some sort of speech, and like people are all mad at him, and he's thinking he's going to run again in 2020, like he can fucking win, and like it's just getting comical at this point, like and the intersectionals are mad. How dare Bernie Sanders? He's still trying to be a white male patriarch, and like and then the working class fucking leftists are like, yeah, fuck you guys, you're privileged white bitches, working class needs to unite. And it's like, none of you guys are gonna fucking get anything done. Like, just to be realistic,
None of them are really working class either.
Well,
Yeah, and to be
no.
honest,
Some of them are. Some of them are.
Yeah, like a small minority. Most of them are only consider themselves working class because they still live with their parents and don't have
No,
jobs.
no, that's not okay.
well, no. Okay, I
That's
do,
not entirely no. That's not entirely true. Okay, I want to say something.
I do
South
want to
Florida
argue a
No,
Bernie,
point there
no.
quick.
South
Okay,
Florida Bernie
I do want to argue a
definitely
point
like
quick
that.
with that. Prince, do you mind if I argue a point quick with that, especially as someone who is who has been an activist and was in the SJW mindset and everything like that.
okay.
I've worked full-time jobs for several years now, even overtime to where I was working 50 hours a week. And I will admit that was one thing I found very amusing, was this assumption that everyone out there involved in protests was out there because they didn't have a job to do.
I was talking
I
about
simply
Bernie people
yeah,
specifically, but
well,
yeah.
even Bernie. Well, no, but in general, it moved on from Bernie to, in general, anyone attending any kind of protest or any kind of rally. And I found it funny because I was like, I work like sometimes 50, 60 hours a week. I just asked for the day off for this event. I actually am, someone who works and contributes, to America and everything like that. And I was like, so yeah. So that's one thing I will admit that I did find interesting, and I found funny that was just an assumption that I felt like the right automatically cast a blanket there, that anyone on the left who was attending these events was someone who did not have a job. But then again, I did joke. I made a joke once because I was especially during the SJW mindset. I made a joke, and I'm like, well, I do have a question though, because one of the arguments with all the conservatives is that all the illegal immigrants, are stealing their jobs. Well, if this is truly happening, then you should all have the time to attend these protests. If all of you have your jobs, if all your jobs are being stolen. But to get back to that, I kind of view that as kind of just an idiotic comeback now. But I will say that was one thing that even now I do look at, and I'm like, well, I was someone who worked 40 hours a week and still managed to attend these events.
Okay.
So
So
sorry, go on.
for one, Seraphine,
I know, I feel bad. I keep
my
messing it up too.
my favorite chat member has donated $30, and I think even he donated $10 that I forgot to mention before. I think he wants to marry me. Thank you very much. You fucking rule. And I will at least let you take me out for dinner sometime if that is,
Yeah.
how you are.
Well,
No, but wait, let me. No, no,
did you
no,
watch?
I'm not
You
finished.
can buy dinner with Prince, guys.
Yeah, yeah.
He's broken through the paywall for the dinner that he can now buy me. But okay, so for one, I just want to say about do Bernie Sanders people have jobs, or are they blah blah? No, I think it really depends on where you are. I think that in big liberal areas, like if you're in the greater Seattle area, which is actually a very like everything in Washington State is mostly within about 50 miles of Seattle. Um, and then if you're in the Bay Area, Northern California, places that had very, very heavy support for Bernie Sanders, the people who were supporting him were the people that were working a lot, and the people who were supporting Hillary Clinton were the rich motherfuckers, and or the people like maybe the people that were more comfortable, and yeah, I imagine a lot of like students and stuff that were like going to college were supporting Bernie Sanders, like but the thing is that the Bernie Sanders support base, I think, was largely people in urban centers that had a good economy, that didn't feel like they were benefiting from the economy. They felt like there were all these motherfuckers that were, going to these fancy restaurant that was on their block that they couldn't afford. It was like I walk out of my apartment building that, I can barely afford to stay in, and the only reason I can is because of rent control. And I see these yuppies eating at this new, you know, Thai Indian fusion restaurant that is on my corner that I've never been able to even go into because even an appetizer is $15, and I just want, some of that money for myself. But this person, is a bartender and also works retail, and they actually do work hard. but they live in an urban center, or there's somebody like I have a friend that I talk to on YouTube right now. I'm actually mad at him because he's being a fucking tool recently, so I'm not going to say friend. He's been a douchebag, but somebody who he's like a union organizer that lives outside of Seattle, and he was very, very much pro Sanders, but it had to do with this idea that it's a big urban center with a gigantic economy, but there's like the trickle down economics aren't exactly working for him and his people, so they supported Bernie Sanders. But it was this whole mindset that I was in until I realized how wrong I was, which was that the whole US is doing really well, that because of the fact that we live in places like San Francisco, Seattle, New York City, where there is a big economy in the place that we are, we assume that the whole US has this booming economy and that we can just distribute it, $15 minimum wage for all. No, that's not how it is. It's only in these select cities is there this big economy. It doesn't work like that. So yeah, that was the big problem with Bernie Sanders, was just this assumption that there was enough money to go around because there were in certain places.
Well, and that it would be okay to take it in the first place. I mean, he constantly talks about the top 1% and 2% without actually bringing up the numbers. That if you are in the top 2%, you are only making about $150,000.
Yeah. And what he really should be meaning is the top 0.3 of the top 1%. Yeah,
but even then, I'm not for wealth redistribution. I don't think it's fair. I think it's theft outright.
Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say was the actual point that I brought up, that I was trying to bring up with this. If I do go out next week and meet up with the people that want to see me, who haven't seen me in like 9 months or something in my own city. I have two girls that I hang out with sometimes because they don't know any of my other friends. They're not gay or anything. They don't hang out with those type of people. If I go out and hang out with these people, and I have to like have political conversations with people, like with laymen, like with the fucking people in my city, the liberal fucking, the people who are still fighting over, like, just today, I saw some feminists complaining about Bernie Bros being like, yeah, and if Hillary Clinton had won, Bernie Bros would still be complaining about her. Blah, blah. Like this is like, shut the fuck up, you dumb cunt. Like, you're not over, like, everybody's like, even the person who made up the Bernie Bro phrase regretted it before the election was over. And he wrote an article being like, okay, I coined the term and I regret it. It's stupid. It's sexist. Like, you're a fucking retard. And I say that with full shitlordery. She's a retard. She's a cunt-tard. And so if I have to have a conversation with somebody like that, what I'm going to say is like, okay, ultimately, I don't want to talk about politics with you, but I will say one thing. I am absolutely not shedding any tears that Hillary Clinton lost. And you can judge me for that if you want to. And if you do want to judge me for that, I am perfectly fine not being your friend at all. You can like go away. That's fine. I don't have to talk to you.
Tears of joy.
Yeah.
You will be judged for that, so.
yeah. And if you want to judge me on that, fine, and please do. But here's the thing. Ultimately, if you really, really follow the money and you look at politicians, it's already starting to pan out that Trump is not a whole lot different than Hillary Clinton, though he did cancel the TTP almost immediately, which she probably wouldn't have done.
Getting us out of NAFTA.
Yeah. And the other thing is that mainly the big difference, and the thing that we absolutely do have in our corner is that we have the ability to criticize Trump as a populace. We would not have had that ability with Hillary Clinton, and I will not regret that decision that the American people made to elect a president that we could hold accountable, because we already couldn't hold Obama accountable. Hillary Clinton was the extension of Obama, and let's face it, they're putting the word mansplain in the dictionary. That's setting us up for a big weird gender imbalance
Mm.
that had a political motivation. So if you want to try to like talk to me about sexism and Bernie Bros and blah 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 blah, let's talk about sexism, and I will explain to you the propaganda of fourth wave feminism and how it related to Hillary Clinton. Oh, you don't want to talk about that? I don't think that you do either. Why don't you go get a drink, honey? Here, I'll give you a quarter to tip with, so that they know how much of a fucking cheap cunt you are.
You know, I went to a few Bernie meetings, a few Sanders rallies, and I actually knew this girl. She was a friend at the time, but she was like became very insufferable. And she was in the Libertarian Party, and I went to a few of their private meetings, and it was just a bunch of neckbeards. It was really just a bunch of neckbeards arguing over anime. There wasn't even any political talk. It turned me off immediately, and you know, maybe I'm biased because of that, but I started to see this trend of this type of person that tended to be for Bernie. It wasn't that all of Bernie Sanders supporters were this way, but the majority of people that are this way are Bernie Sanders supporters, and that turned me off. And you know, I do think, unfortunately, Bernie would have given Trump a hell of a run for his money, may have even eliminated him in the race. And that scares me more than anything, because when you break down his fiscal policy, it is socialism, plain and simple, nothing else. You can read all of his publications from the 70s where he talked about wealth redistribution and that there should be a cap on money that you can make in your lifetime. And that's terrifying that he had that much of a crowd. And I'm really glad in a way that the DNC fucked him over, because it woke a lot of people up and sent a lot of people Trump's way.
Well, I actually want to jump off from that quickly, because it is interesting, because
Yeah.
I actually saw a number of groups, actually Republicans for Bernie. Because Bernie had something that Hillary didn't. He actually could connect with people.
Definitely.
Whether for the best, he was, for the people that supported him, very much a man of the people. This is a man who marched with unions. He actually got down to, this is a man who has a past in the civil rights movement. This is a man who has marched for the causes he believes in, not just, you know, he's not a man who has just spent his career, his political career, speaking into a microphone, following a prompt. This is a man who's actually been in the fight, from an activist standpoint. So he actually was able to connect with a lot of people. And actually, I knew a number of people, even out in rural areas, who supported Bernie over Hillary, because he was a man who could actually connect with people. Like I said, whether for the better or for the worse, this was a man who was able to connect. So he actually would have been more of a threat to Trump, I agree, than Hillary, but the DNC did fuck him over. And so yeah, I definitely agree with that take on that situation.
Prostrated to Hillary right afterward, which really burned everyone as well.
Oh yeah, that whole thing, that was a fuck fest. Just watching that was it honestly became quite amusing. That was a huge fuck fest. One comment I did want to make quickly, especially because I know Prince, you were talking about feeling uncomfortable and you know, going out, and you haven't been out in a while. I am considering attending on June 11th. There is a march in Washington, D.C., and I am considering attending it with from my own modern, you know, my own current perspective, as having exited the SJW mindset. Just because I honestly think that those of us in the community, especially in the LGBT community, who, whether or not you identify with it, but if you identify as it, I feel that we need to not be afraid to make our presence known in these environments anymore. Personally, that's my perspective on it. I am thinking of attending this event. I know I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate. To be honest, I'm not gonna lie. Even before this, even when I was in the SJW mindset, I was afraid to attend some of the liberal events. Because first of all, I look redneck as fuck, and if my hat gets knocked off, it's very clear. I mean, come on, a white man with a shaved head. What do we associate that with? Yeah, exactly. A fucking skinhead. So I actually had a friend invite me to a protest, and it was very SJW attended, very Black Lives Matter focused. and I couldn't help but think out of break out, would there even be a second thought that I wasn't there? Would I automatically be assumed that I'm a skinhead or some fucking backwards redneck who is racist as fuck? Would I be judged just by the appearance right here, and would I be attacked by the side that I actually was there with? These were thoughts I started to have as I noticed the left was going more batshit crazy. And to be honest,
Yeah.
having left the left myself, I no longer consider the left liberal. I think that any liberals, true liberals of substance, have left the left. I honestly believe that.
I think that they are at
Yeah.
least definitely considering it and not necessarily showing up to protests. They're like,
Mhm.
how do I tell all my friends that they're fucking stupid? Like, yeah. Also, did you guys hear about that protest that was where some sort of Black Lives Matter thing where some Chinese guy got like beat up and they were beating him up and then they were like, wait, he's Chinese.
Black on Asian crime is actually a really big issue that I've heard about.
No, I just visually imagine that moment of, wait, guys, stop,
He's one of us.
stop. He's with us. Stop. Notice. He's oh my god. No, sorry. That visually, I know that's horrible, but it was just
It's
wow.
no, what I always thought was like kind of funny is that like so there's since the Black Lives Matter movement became a thing, especially in places with high populations of Asian people like Seattle. Seattle is, by the way, like
Yeah.
30% Asian. It's like really a lot of Asian people because there's the University of Washington is right in the middle of Seattle, and it's a very high population school. I think there's something like 50,000 people who go there, and it's one of the top engineering schools in like the whole world. So there's like maybe like over 50% of the whole University of Washington is Asian, like exchange type students. And so uh there's these virtue signaling protests that go on that are like Filipinos for Black Lives Matter and like these very like, and it's just so funny because it's like, oh kids, if you only knew what the 90s was like, like the Korean store owners versus the blacks in the
Yep.
fucking like LA. um wait, who was I don't remember the name. There was this one woman who shot like a teenage girl and it was this big deal. So
Yeah, no, well, if you don't mind, I kind of want to bring it back quickly to
Yeah.
Trump and kind of like my one of my final points, kind of to bring us where we are today. I did read an article recently. I didn't have a chance to follow up on it because I kind of just read it today. I don't know if either of you had followed this, where a number of House representatives, I think it was around 50, have come out very strongly demanding that Trump keep his promise in regards to making some kind of executive order that protects religious individuals, religious groups, so on and so forth. I one thing I do want to say is that I feel like there is this view. First of all, that churches are under attack specifically. I personally I haven't seen. I mean, I've read a few stories of it, but nothing that I've seen blow up nationally of churches being forced to have to allow gays in to sit at their sermons or anything like that. But I feel that this is definitely how what they're feeling is going to happen. But anyways, I don't know if either of you have read that. I know that's a recent article I saw, and I saw a number of comments on that, of course, attacking Christianity. Once again, no focus on what's happening where Islam is concerned,
Of course not.
or anything like that. Just to focus, of course, on Christianity. But have either of you heard about that? These representatives in the House pushing, trying to put pressure on Trump to do something in regards to religious protections. And if so, what are your views on that? It is fairly recent, so.
Not
Yeah.
specifically, but I used to be, pretty anti-theist. I used to be pretty anti-Christian, and I've since come out of that, having met quite a few really nice Christian people. I blame my upbringing for having thought that way about them. But it is okay still to make fun of Christians versus all the other religions. And you pointed that out with the obvious leaving out of Islam, that Christians still feel persecuted. When Christians are dying in foreign countries, the media is silent about it. So they must feel under attack. And personally, I don't blame them for feeling that way whatsoever.
I do want to quickly interject there because Mr. Monkey Lint has said this several times. Executive orders are not law, and it's been
Correct.
capitalized several times. That is correct. People certainly will act like they are. But so I just wanted to
disappear every
recognize.
4 to 8 years usually.
Yeah, exactly. They just yeah, exactly. I did want to recognize that, Mr. Monkey Lint. You're absolutely correct. You've been stating it several times. But yes, we are acknowledging that. However, people very much treat them like they are. So anyways, to get back to this, Valyn, I know you talked about it a little bit. You hadn't heard much about it. Prince, have you heard anything about this? Like I said, it was about 50
No.
House representatives. I was just curious on your take. Well, let me put it this way then. Since you're not aware of it, and to be honest, I'm not even fully aware of all the details surrounding it, do you think Trump will feel pressured by this group of 50 some odd religious conservatives in the House to make an executive order? Let me put that out there. Do you think?
I
Do you
don't
think
fucking
he
I
will
don't
be
fucking
feel
know.
pressured?
I have no idea how he's gonna like actually handle the religious right in his term. Like, for all we know with him, he could just sort of like say, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, sure, guys. Yeah, yeah, and then just like ignore them. That would not be surprising. For all we know, he'll just be like, "You're fired" if somebody annoys him too much, like in his cabinet. Because we don't know that he won't do that. And then for all we know, he will completely follow through on reunifying, like, some sort of Captain Planet shit, the religious right, and getting the religious right back together. Because uh the oligarchy wants to have a united force of brainwashed voters like they used to during the Bush years, and this is the only thing they know. They don't have time to invent a new religion like they did with intersectional social justice. So, like we really don't know how he's gonna like handle all of this like weird religious influence on him. I don't really have an a good prediction, but I can say why I think it would go any way.
I think
Yeah.
that actually the left has empowered him in a way by vetoing everything that he's trying to do. They've given him an out. Just like with Obamacare, he can go ahead and try and pass something, and the second that it's not vetoed, or that it's vetoed, he can go ahead and say, well, look, I tried, they stopped it, I'm not going to push it any further until they get their shit together. And that sort of gives him a way to attempt doing something while shifting the blame onto the left, which in this case is very fair to do, because I blame the left for a lot of shit right now. But I think they've given him an out to where he can kind of appease the Christian right without actually having to make any changes.
Mm. No, I definitely can agree with that. Like I said, overall, I honestly, I think this current focus on these House representatives is kind of just crazy on the part of the left. I really don't think there's going to be anything coming of it. I will continue to watch it, of course, but I really think the left is going a little bit batshit crazy. Now, I did want to backtrack quick.
With Congress.
Yeah, I did want to backtrack. Yeah, no, Congress, that is going to be very interesting. I'm actually, the craziness of 2018, I'm looking forward to it with both horror and amusement, because I feel like I'm going to be, I feel like it's going to be funny in a sad way. But but anyways, so now one thing I kind of want to backtrack a little bit in regards to the whole Supreme Court situation here, the nomination and everything, the left really blowing up here. First of all, I even months ago, I kind of looked at it this way. I get why a lot of them, because they feel Obama was fucked out of appointing a Supreme Court justice. I understand that, but in regards to Trump's nomination here, it's replacing a conservative with a conservative, so I don't understand the complete fucking flip out on the part of the left. Personally, that's just my perspective. However, a lot of people on the left, and including in the LGBT community, are flipping out because I always butcher his name. What's the Supreme Court justice now? Was it Gorsuch?
Gorsuch or something. Yeah, I always
Gorsuch.
fuck his name
I
up.
always butcher that shit, and I hate when I butcher a name. Because my name before I got married, everyone fucking butchered it, so I try not to do it. But anyway, so Gorsuch, a lot of people are pointing to past, that he wasn't very, trans friendly, and that's another thing that I noticed is, well, first of all, let's go with that. How do you guys feel about the Supreme Court nomination? I honestly, I'm not flipping about it, even as a liberal personally. I view it as a replacement of a conservative with a conservative. How do you guys feel about that? And do you feel there's any threat to the LGBT community? Because I know that's been a focus, especially where the trans community is concerned.
I will say really quickly that the more I've looked at the Supreme Court and legal precedent, and like knowing how weird things can get, like what I was saying about California before being, just a state based on wacky legal precedents that no longer make sense, and that by itself being a very freaky thing. I'm totally fine with at least one Supreme Court judge being appointed that's like quite conservative just to keep balance, because there is no telling what the fucking left will do if put in power. Like, we know now, thanks to people like Cat Black, that feminists will perpetuate the myth that gay men are all perverts and that we're like sexually molesting women at gay bars all the time. So like, we know we're never safe, like as gay guys, for example, and nobody else is. Like, the right will, maybe demonize people that are antithetical to Christianity or whatever, but the left will demonize whoever the fuck they feel. Apparently, like whoever the fuck they think is like in the way of their
Each
little.
other. Yep.
Yeah. So I do think that balance is probably the thing that I actually care about the most right now, and I never thought I would be saying that, but it's like, no, I'm every bit as scared of a world where people think all just like me as I am where where the majority doesn't think like me.
Mm. No, I definitely.
From what I saw with Gorsuch, I can't get his name out tonight. It's he's a staunch conservative, and I dig that. And like you said, it is a good reactionary and countermeasure to the insanity of the left right now. We need that. He is, he agrees with me on a lot of things when it comes to abortion, and I fall very conservative when it comes to that, even though I don't believe in imposing things on people, etc. I think, like you said, having a counterpoint to the left is very important right now. And honestly, I wouldn't even think of it as such a victory if the left didn't get so butthurt about it. And I've kind of seen myself over the last year become a little more petty, just enjoying watching them get hurt. They deserve it. So I'm glad he's in, and let's continue with that.
Yeah, no, I like I said, it's not necessarily me feeling positive, but to me, I'm not viewing this as a catastrophic, oh my God, end of days thing that many of my friends on the left are. So I know we've been going for a while now. I guess I figured we could maybe go around and each kind of sum up how we feel where the LGBT community stands in regards to Trump, kind of put it out there, and then if we want to bitch on a little bit, I guess we can, but I figured if you're okay with that, we can do that quickly.
We can do a private hangout because a friend of mine wanted to jump on, so
okay.
yeah.
Okay. So I guess to me, and I know this sounds weird, especially as I mentioned earlier in the stream, and as I know Valyn has witnessed, my experiences over the past couple weeks, well, especially over the past week, has definitely I feel I've been coming out very anti SJW. I've started to come out, but the responses that I've gotten have, as Prince you mentioned earlier, it's that whole, I don't shitlord. I really have fully moved on there. Because of my work schedule, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from YouTube over the next couple of weeks. I have training with my job, but I'm going to be coming full back. I'm going to be coming back, and I'm not going to be holding back. I feel like in the past, even recently, I've been holding a little bit back because I do have friends who are SJW, and I've been trying still to maintain those friendships. But to have someone who 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 I who I've marched with, who I've been at political events with, who I spent so much time supporting, basically come just short of accusing me of racism, of being a racist, was definitely an eye-opening experience. Only because I didn't agree with his view,
Yeah.
I was a racist.
Yeah, fuck these people. Fuck these people.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
So that's generally where I'm going.
no, and so many people, even before I did it, myself, like you think like, oh well, these are my real friends. I've known them for so long, and and then people give you these very trite, responses like, well, if they're your real friends, then they won't disown you as a friend over these stupid things. That's that's a very, very short version of it, but like ultimately it's more that once you realize how quickly these people will demonize you, it shows that you aren't their real friend because you don't actually like them, because they are so, like the second you say the wrong thing to them, they're willing to like throw you under the bus so fucking quickly. And it's like, whoa, 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 I don't need this person in my life. And not just do I not need this person in my life, what I really need to do is tell this person that they do not deserve me in their life. Like,
No,
and
yeah.
they don't deserve people like me in their life. If you're gonna treat your fucking friends like this, you can't have a discussion. Like you can't handle feminism being criticized without freaking out, and like like if that's the kind of person you are, how fucking dare you, and how dare your friends not tell you that there's something seriously wrong with you. I'm going to be the first of hopefully many to tell you exactly how fucked up you are and how fucked up you have become.
Yeah.
And I hope that people follow suit. I'm going to do it publicly on your Facebook timeline, and I really, really hope that I can get as many comments in before you block me. And I hope that people see them, because you suck. And I cannot believe I DJ'd at your wedding, you cunt.
No, I definitely get that. I guess the final thing that I kind of want to put out there, I don't know if we even have any SJWs watching, or how many we have from the LGBT community, or how many liberals that we have. But one thing I want to say, and I want to put out there, because I honestly I feel like the point of my channel has become, for me personally, is to undo a lot of what I perceive as the damage that I helped contribute to causing as an SJW. Because as I've said in past streams, I wasn't just the beta male who was I wasn't just the cuck. I was a leading force. I probably got some women to become feminists, and I probably got
some black people to become
some
Black Lives Matter
Black Lives
activists.
Matter supporters. Like I said, I wasn't just a bitch in the movement. I definitely was a pusher in my area of it. I know, a pusher like a drug dealer, which pretty much it is.
Yeah.
I really want to say to the LGBT
SJWism is free for the first time, unlike drugs.
but I guess what I want to put out there, to the community, or to people who are LGBT, even if you don't consider yourself part of the community, but especially those on the left, I really acknowledge that the left, first of all, it's no longer liberal as we knew it. It's not the left that I was part of when I was fighting for marriage equality. It's not the left that I was a part of when I was taking part in peaceful protests, when I was meeting with my Senate representatives, when I was doing letter writing campaigns. This is not the left that exists today. And the left that exists today has very much abandoned us. It's infected us with the Black Lives Matter mindset. It's infected us with modern feminism. So the concept of toxic masculinity. and it's done so many other things. Then we have the trenders, of course, which are completely destroying any of the real gains by true transgender people. And ultimately, to be honest, the left, I feel, and officially I'm going to make this statement, is I feel the left has abandoned the LGBT community. I can honestly say that at this point, especially in regards to where Sharia is concerned, because when I can look at what's supposed to be a liberal event such as the Women's March and see a woman who supports Sharia being adopted nationally in this country, a law, a system that would have me thrown off a fucking roof. Come on, how is that not basically an abandonment of our community? We were the token for the time. We were what was used to push a narrative, push an agenda, and I do feel that we've been abandoned. Now, I'm not saying love Trump, because I personally do not, but I am asking the community, those who are liberal in the community, to at least acknowledge that the left is no longer our friend. It's definitely not. So that's kind of where I wanna leave that. Like I said, I'm not saying love Trump, because I sure as fuck don't, but acknowledge what the left has become.
Let me get some final thoughts in because I got a motor. Basically, just like you said, the left is no longer the left. In the same way, I've realized the right is no longer the right that we have come to know. That it's a lot more accepting than I remember it ever being, or that I was indoctrinated to believe it was. And in the first 100 days of Trump's presidency, personally, I believe he's done more benefit to this country than Obama did within 8 years. So he may not be the president we wanted, but he's the one we needed. And I'm looking forward to the next 4 years, and I'm hopefully the next 8 years, and I will be making my voice known more so about that as my channel grows. And I think it's important to shut these fucking left down. They feel entitled. They feel like you have to explain to them everything. They're not entitled to a minute of my fucking words. So I'm going to stop trying to focus on arguing with them, or at least attempt to, and try and focus more on red pilling the shit out of people like you guys that were actually be more likely to use logic and come to the same conclusion.
Oh, you think you can red pill me? You think you can red pill me?
I don't know. Maybe I'll donate $30.
I will fucking 5D. I will 5D chess your ass.
Okay.
Hey, you guys. My friend Wizard of Cause is in the chat, and he wants to give a gay ass happy birthday AJ on stream. So on 3, say happy birthday AJ, because she's my friend. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday AJ. That was not very good. We're not fucking.
I spoke too fast. We're not coordinated.
It's like 2:30 in the morning here, and I'm on a lot of coffee.
Yeah, it's 2:19 in the morning where I am. It's just 2:20.
All right, but I do have to leave, everybody. I hate to run, but it's been a great chat. I want to thank everyone who came in to watch. My name, again, is Valyn, and you can find me at VeryValyn on Twitter, and my YouTube channel hopefully will continue to grow.
Okay, bye. I'm going to stop the broadcast.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Valyn. And I want to say to all those, if you enjoyed watching me fuck, oh my God, no, you don't want to see me fuck. If you enjoyed watching me run my fucking mouth, please check me out, The Liberal Hammer. And also, you can find my Twitter link from there. I'm still going to stick. I know you said we were going to chat private. I don't mind doing that. My husband's crashed already, so.
Okay.